The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out.
Good evening, Spaced Out Radio. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high. Get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners and settle down snugly at mile marker 419.9 in colorful Colorado. It is Tuesday, July 24th, Wednesday, July 25th. For those of you on the East Coast and beyond, this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you guys had a rockin' week, an awesome day, and an even better evening. I am your host, Tessa N and I am live tonight broadcasting from beautiful Bayfield, Colorado. We are 150,000 strong nightly on Spaced Out Radio Network, spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, as well as Deep Talk Radio, which you can find at deeptalkradio.com. Don't forget to head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, where you can peruse the Spaced Out Radio store and read the encounter online, dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. Tonight I have a treat for all you guys and gals out there. Tonight we are talking with Psychic Ginette Lucas. And before I get to her bio and such, I just wanted to give you guys a little update on Dave. He's actually gotten the most rest last night than he has since this whole tragedy happened with his nephew. But he said so far that that this has been the hardest day, but he wants you to know that you guys are in his thoughts, and he really appreciates your guys' thoughts and prayers and all the love you guys have been sending out, so please keep that up. So Ginette M. Lucas is an internationally known water dowser, psychic, speaker, and writer. You can read about her and her work as described by the Smithsonian Magazine, January 1996, by J. Hope, or view a doc by NHK News on missing persons. Read about her through Google as well. She has now selected an agent and is putting together her book series and writing articles with a variety of themes in the paranormal field to include her near-death experiences. She is the daughter of Lois Matitia, military dowser and treasure hunter, now retired. The media calls regularly for interviews, so just Google research and news articles or interviews to include her involvement with various nonprofits like the American Society of Dowsers in Vermont, USA. Hey Ginette, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, Tessa. I'm so glad to be here. So hit me with questions. Let's do this. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, to get to know more about you and what you do, I was wondering, when was your first paranormal or psychic experience?
Well, since my father, and his name is Louis Matitia, so a lot of Californians and some of the Canadians will, have heard the name before. My father was famous for locating booby traps and bombs for Vietnam. And what he did was he was teaching the U.S. Marines how to use dowsing to use the process out in the field. And he decided he was going to do a videotape, not a videotape, I'm sorry, a film footage, 8mm tape for all the military. And when he did, he used to go to the offices of like the CIA or the FBI or Army, but he decided to do it in his backyard to show the guys that if you're working out in the field, you need raw footage and you need examples. So a general came out to the backyard, when I was 7, and it was a guy by the name of General McMasters and his military staff from Quantico. And they brought a few Marines, and they were practicing with L-rods. And a lot of people don't know my father copyrighted he invented the L-rod. So instead of the forked stick, you go from the forked stick to the L-rod and then to the pendulum. So he took the L-rod and he was showing them how to use it. They didn't understand. So my dad said, listen, if a kid can do it, you can do it. So he brought my brother out. And my brother was like 2 years older, so he was 9. And he brought the L-rod out and said, this is how you do it, and showed him the process. Everybody has their own technique on dowsing, so because it's a very visual art form, a lot of people don't comprehend the process. So my brother was showing them, this is how you find a creek bed. And then I came outside and I said, well, if you're going to go for it, why don't you go for a larger, like a pond or underground water, a larger quantity of water. And so I grabbed the L-rod, ran over, and I found an area, and the Marines went down and started digging. And, within 6 inches, it maybe 12 inches. And that's another thing about dowsing. You can do measurement, you can do length, height, and I'll explain that in a minute. And so I was about 7, and I'm aging myself. I'm turning 60 soon, but back then I was 7, so we're talking 1965-ish. When I was in the backyard and I used the L-rod, the guy started digging and a ton of water came up. So I think the process is a step-by-step process, and when I do my other work, it's the same thing. That was my first water paranormal experience. Regarding ghosts, that's a whole other story. We don't want to get into that. I'll just say this real quick. My mom, her mother lived in a house that was haunted. And so I was familiar with that, and we knew that the ghost came and left, and she went out a particular window. But when you're a little kid, you're not that afraid because it didn't seem like a menacing ghost. Mm-hmm. So we were little kids, like little kids, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, experiencing that particular ghost. But again, we were in a grandparent setting, and we were pretty comfortable with it. So for all those paranormal ghost lovers out there, most kids don't get afraid of the ghosts, when it's in a home environment, I think. But of course, when you go to the psychiatric unit of a hospital, it might be a whole new ball game. So that's 1, and then 2 is the dowsing, and 3. Shortly after that, I had a near-death experience, and when I had my near-death experience, I had it at my house. And I don't have documentation for it, but my siblings recall the situation. And so that was another weird experience. And so the plethora of information out there on the paranormal is really big. And, you know, you could talk about anything and everything. So I think that from my early standpoint of understanding, I put everything in a almost in a book order, or I compartmentalize everything. And when I do, I find it's much easier to understand. And I think your listeners will feel the same way. So I hope that helps you get a kickstart to where I started. And again, some people know who my father is. He's written several books on the paranormal and buried treasure hunting and locating water wells. But he comes from the aspect of an engineering background.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very educated indeed. And the L-rods are amazing. Like I was telling you earlier, my granny, she taught us how to douse for water with a forked stick. Then later on, as an adult, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I came across the L-rods and used them, and it was just amazing. All the information that we found and answers we got communicating with ghosts and such. And that was my first paranormal tool. I am founder of Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, and so I collect all kinds of stuff just to investigate with and, investigate the tools themselves as well. Do they actually work? But they are my all-time favorite. So kudos to your dad for that. That's awesome.
It's really amazing. I mean, but, you guys do a bunch of stuff I haven't done either. I mean, I've helped with tours from the Fort organization. Are you familiar with them, that particular group?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay. The Fortean organization was developed by a guy in Europe. What happened was he had some relatives die, and they left him a ton of money, and he was always fascinated by the paranormal or anything out of the norm, because that's what paranormal means, out of the norm, basically. And so he decided he was going to write a book on all these different chapters of, like, the monkey goat or the demon or ghost hunting or anything weird. And so his name was Charles Fort, and he decided to develop not just a book on all these different things. He would travel worldwide and put together the research and investigation into all these different paranormal aspects. And so later in life, I joined the Fort organization, and they would take, during the convention, they would take people on a ghost tour, which was a freaking blast. And the people, oh my God, they're so nice, and they're so fun, and they're so sincere. I mean, of course, you're going to get a couple of crazies out of 1,000 people, but most of the time, ladies or guys, if you're single, go meet them. They're fun. They communicate really well, and they aren't too far out. And what's so cool about the Fort organization, you get to meet some, pre-celebrity people that come, like the guys that you see on Ancient Aliens. They were all there. And years ago, I mean, way back when. And I recall meeting them, and I thought to myself, one day they'll go somewhere. And here they are. They're covering all sorts of, situations with aliens and ghosts and questioning God and physics and astrophysics. It's really fascinating. But so Charles Fort, they have an annual convention, and they take people on ghost tours, and they cover almost any topic in the paranormal, which is really great. The only thing about them that is a little different is when you go on the internet and you Google different groups, like there's light workers and all this stuff on the internet, their group is more research-oriented. Their group has a lot of highly educated people. I'm originally from D.C., so you're going to get more PhDs. You're going to get more questioning. So you can't just come out and say, hey, I'm an alien. They want you to prove it. And I'm fine by that. I'm more of a black and white person. How about you? Are you like, I want to do the research, but I want to go in with skepticism and black and white? What's your take on some of these projects?
I actually like to go into a project not knowing anything and then come out and let them know my findings, and it's really awesome when they come back and say, yeah, that's, exactly what's going on. That's who this was. I like to go in blind, basically, and then hear the information afterwards and see how close we came to getting it, and we've had a lot of good success with that.
I think it's a good comparable. I like to start off knowing nothing also. For example, in the Caylee Anthony case, everybody says, oh, Ginette did this, Ginette did that, and none of that is correct. The media is totally incorrect. The only interviews I've had are the ones that are radio interviews. I haven't had any TV interviews. They didn't send me anything except for the little teddy bear eventually months later. And so I tell people, listen, you can't believe everything you hear. If you want the truth, go to the source. On that particular case, I wasn't even given a map. I had to go get my own map. It was sad. But, like, for example, when you go do a site, what do you have? You have your equipment. Do you have a drawing of the building you're going to typically, or you don't?
No.
Nothing. You just have your equipment. Do you make a plan? Do you have a process that you take to assess the information?
We like to, start at the lowest level and work our way up. And it's funny, we generally find more activity on the upper levels, particularly floor number 3. But it just all varies because every story is different. But, yeah, we just go in and have a plan of attack and go from there.
I hear you. Well, I just think that whenever you work on a case, it could call for different tools. Sometimes your dreams, sometimes it could include the dowsing, sometimes it could include your psychic ability. And sometimes I like to sit down with my friends and say, hey, just sit here, play antenna, and I'll pick up information from you sitting here. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds crazy, but I like to work in a small group setting of 3 people. Sometimes for example, I worked on a case in Pennsylvania, and the lady came down who was a volunteer to help find the missing woman. And I had my 2 sisters here, and I said, okay, both of you guys are going to be my antennas, and I'm going to try to pick up what I call is the radius or the azimuth. Azimuth is a direction, a compass direction of where the person is located. Mm-hmm. And I can actually pick up more. It's like a radio vibe when there's at least a group of 3 of us. The only thing about a big group of people, when you do stuff, it might be a little noisy. That might be the only dilemma you may have.
Yeah, generally our crews are small because not everybody can make it out. But if we do have a larger crew, we might take turns, or we might have, a number of people on each floor. It just depends on how many we start out with. But like with the lower crew, we'll just stick together. If we're larger, we'll, do different floors and switch out in whatever order they'd like.
So do you have people checking out from going to the 3rd floor, knowing that might be the most active floor?
No, they actually want to go. I want to hit it first.
They want to go to the 3rd floor?
Yeah.
I hear you. I personally love the photographs. I think the photographs and the videotaping of ghosts is just essential, and it helps a lot of people get that show me state attitude done and over with, because you can say, oh my gosh, I see it, visually see it. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, it really does.
Well, there's more to tell you about my background. What else would you like to know? Would you like to know my first couple of cases, some of my platforms on missing persons?
Yeah.
You tell me where you want to take your show, and we'll take it.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna work up to that.
Okay.
But yeah, being that your parents, your mother being, spiritually inclined, your dad being very smart and creating these L-rods, I can imagine that they were supportive of, your gifts and ability to douse.
My father was. My mother, no. She basically poo-pooed it no matter what. I was very lucky because he was supportive. One of the top things that I got to do was get around organizations like the Edgar Cayce Foundation. I gave a quick lecture on dreams for them, and I have great dreams. So I thought tonight, later on, I could tell people how to, I call it incubating dreams, and I give major predictions when I incubate dreams, and I can tell you what's going to happen politically, or I can tell you what's going to happen like a plane crash, or maybe a tail number on a plane, or where it's coming from, where it's going to, that kind of thing. When I used to go on radio in D.C., what I would do is say, okay, we're going to have 3 plane crashes, and it looks like this airline, it looks like it's leaving at this time, and it looks like it's going to crash in blah, blah. One of the things that scared people was that my accuracy rate was, I would study on it for 3 days and assess the outcome and make sure I was as accurate and gentle with the public as I could be. And, for example, I would say, okay, it looks like Continental Airlines, or it was Southwest Airlines, and I predicted the Sioux City, Iowa plane crash. And people said, what are you talking about? I said, it's going down in a cornfield. And, if there are survivors, it'll be a shock. But, maybe they'll get lucky and just a couple people survive. But, normally it's going to, sometimes you can see it where people are going to survive, which is the great news. That's the plan, is to prevent accidents from happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to deal with Edgar Casey's group, which is a nonprofit organization, and I got to lecture for them, and I think I have definitely made people aware of the fact that each one of us has the capability of opening up our eyes or opening up our mind to what's available out there, not just in the paranormal, but that our brain, if you open a door in your brain and say, hey, listen, I want to know more, you're going to become more intuitive. When it comes to some other work, now I'll talk about tarot people, or when I first started out, this sounds goofy, but a lot of tarot people started out, and I didn't exactly know how to read the tarot cards at first. And so my dad bought me a deck of cards and said, hey, why don't you use a deck of cards? So I would take a deck of cards, pull out 3 cards, just like the tarot format, and I would say, I see this, I see that, because I would see pictures in the cards. Now, today, the repackaging of visions is, they're using the term remote viewing. So it's dowsing went from the twig to the L-rod, and now visions have gone from visions to remote viewing, which is pretty funny. Mm-hmm. But, it's like everything changes terminology, So I started out with a deck of cards, and I was lucky because when I was a kid, I used to get paid $20 an hour just to read a deck of cards for people, and
nice.
I would certainly yeah, when you're a kid, you're like $20 an hour. This is in the 70s. That's a lot of money back then.
You're like, I'm going to do this forever.
Oh, absolutely. I was like, oh, this is fun. And you did ask a question about my peers and that kind of thing. How the peers feel? My mom didn't like it, but my peers, I think only a couple people knew I did it, and they didn't even talk about it. My siblings were always like, ask Jeanette, what does she think about this or that? And, of course, I used to predict some silly things, like don't go to the beach because there's going to be sharks or you're going to get jellyfish stung. Or I would say, oh, you're going to get a broken leg. And they go, oh, yeah, and you know it all. And then they come back with a broken leg or something stupid and say, some people would always say, oh, well, don't say anything. Just don't say anything. Sometimes you can prevent incidences from happening, which is super cool. That would be my favorite approach to life, is prevent. For example, like the other day, I was getting some weird major predictions, and I thought, can't formulate that yet, because, the old cliche, who are you going to call? Who are you going to tell? Oh, we're going to have this problem or this problem or this problem. So I do have friends in good places, and I can call them and talk to them. For example, I was picking up something weird the other day, and a client called me today and said, I was picking up an assassination, and I said, not of our president, thank God. And I said, yeah, I got that too, but I can't say anything yet because I don't have a specific date, and I don't have a specific time, and I don't have all the details. And the client was getting upset, and I said, don't get upset. I've got the right contacts. I can just call them and tell them, and just make them aware that this might come forward. That's the big thing about posting predictions on the internet. You do have to be careful. Like, I love to predict earthquakes to prevent problems from happening with people. And I'm willing to stick myself out there and say, listen, this is going to be really bad. And it looks like I'm a year off on one of my predictions, because apparently I thought it was going to be this January, February, March. And we did have some bad earthquakes, but I think the ones that are coming are going to be worse this coming 2019. And I think people need to learn the word move or go on vacation. And if they say evacuate, you have to evacuate, period. So that's where I am with a general idea of more of my background.
Nice. So what, can you tell our listeners what exactly is dowsing? Like, how does it work? You said everybody's got a different way of doing it. What is your way of using them?
Sure. Well, my dad actually wrote a process because, I do a lot of what's called map dowsing. And, for example, I work for buried treasure hunters to locate treasure and that kind of thing. All right, so let's use one of my examples about a month and a half ago. All right. About a month and a half ago, a couple of guys called me and they wanted to test me out. They wanted to see if I could really do the work I said I could do. And that happens. And sometimes I'll do it, sometimes I won't. It depends. And I said, sure, let's just try it because you're already on site. So let's say they were in Mississippi. And I said, okay, you take a map of the area you're going to search, and they were treasure hunting. And I said, what you do is you write down what you're looking for. So I call it the grocery list. So you write down, I'm looking for treasure. And you can't just say treasure. You have to define what your treasure is. So you say treasure. So you can say gold ingots. You can say gold placers. You can say gold jewelry. You can say emeralds. You can say diamonds. You can say jewelry. You have to write this long freaking list, just like you're going to the grocery store. You can say silver bars. You can say robbery pieces. You have to just keep writing up a heck of a long list. And once you've done that, so that is the what you're looking for. If you're looking for a missing person, I write down who I'm looking for, and I say when. So if you say anything from the 1600s and up, so you could say 1640. I don't think anybody was in Mississippi at that time, but, so let's say it was 1640. And you say, I'm looking for this particular, like if you were looking for that particular item, you'd say, I'm looking for this. But since you're treasure hunting, you want to pull up anything you can get on that grocery list. And so let's say they were doing 6 acres. And I said, okay, so we're going to, so you do who, what, when, where, how. And you're going to I use pendulum dowsing, and I do the map dowsing from my home. So a lot of people are shocked. They go, you really do it from your home? And that's what I did with the Anthony case. I did it right from my home. If you're familiar with dowsing, you can use the L-rod, or you can use the pendulum, or you can use all your other talent and combine it, and then you get a more isolated location. So on dowsing, I pull out the map of the area, let's say it's Mississippi. Let's say, whatever town. Let's say Bluesmith, Mississippi. And it's this acreage, and it's near this road. So let's call it a mile 60. And so you say, show me, my magic word, which is going to be in my book, is show me, show me, show me, because we're visual people, okay? And so what you do is you, let's see, who, what, when, where, how. So you write down your grocery list, and then you take your map, and it has to face north. All right, that is mandatory, because if you go out in the field, you want to be able to do the same thing. You want to go out in the field, and if it's north, then you're at the same point. It's like being apples and oranges if you don't face north. And then I pick a spot, and I say, okay, guys, pick a pole or something. I want you to stand at that pole. I'm going to mark it on the map, and then what we're going to do is we're going to count how many feet you need to go out to find the treasure, and that's on the grocery list. And so what I do is I say, okay, it looks like we're going to have to do the compass method. And so your map is to your left, but you're facing north. Your human body needs to face north. The guys out in the field need to face north. But that's the screw up concept. A lot of people think, oh no, I can do anything. No, the process is face north. There's a big focus when you face north. And then what happens is I take a piece of paper, and I have it drawn to look like a compass. And this sounds really goofy. I dowse, but I'll explain the dowsing in a second. I dowse out what part of the 360 on the compass that the treasure is closest to. So let's say I said your treasure is going to be between 330 and 340 degrees. All right, so know the degrees level, which is considered the azimuth. And then what you have to do is you have to be able to read what your pendulum is telling you. So typically your pendulum will say yes, no. I do a little bit more in depth. I'll say danger. I'll say, let's see, definite yes. I use another method. I say hot, like you're on it. And I also tell the pendulum to make my body react to accuracy. And so if my teeth react, then I know darn well that I've got something really great here. Like recently I just doused something and I said, oh my God, I've got something here really, really good. It was from a robbery. And the guy hasn't gone out yet. So I tell him, use the compass method where you have a copy of a compass next to your map dowsing. Use a map. Be as specific as you can be. I just found out there's also this map method called Google Earth Pro from one of my treasure hunters, and you can be put 5 feet from where your treasure is, which is super cool. My computer, which is an Apple, hasn't got the software in it, so we have to order it or whatever. But if people want to look up Google Earth Pro and you're looking for a missing person, missing object, or treasure, get that Google Earth Pro. It's really important. So on dowsing, what happens is, what I do is I say, show me. When I start out with the pendulum, I say, show me. I'm facing north, and I say, show me yes. And then suddenly my pendulum will swing a certain pattern. So I write down this pattern means yes. And typically it's north and south. And then I say, show me no, which is typically east and west. Show danger, and that's typically on an angle. And then I'll say, show me hot, show me this, show me that. And I create the pattern, and then what I do is, since I've been doing it for years, I do the same pattern all the time. And then what I do with the guys in the field, I said, when you're working with an L rod, you don't want to overdo it. Because a lot of times I tell people, please try to use 1 L rod if you can. If you feel uncomfortable, use 2. Because you want the L rod to point at where you're going. You could say, show me by pointing where the treasure is. And so when the guys were out in the field, I said, I want you to leave this pole, because they were standing next to a certain pole. So I knew where they were on the map, and I said, go, I don't know, I might have said 60 feet. And I said 330 degrees to 340, stay in that area, and use your metal detector. So they had the arm metal detector. And within, he said 5 minutes, they got a hit. And when they did, they dug, and it wasn't very deep down, like within 6 inches. And they found a gold ring that had an insignia on it that said from 1924. It even listed the manufacturer, which was pretty cool. So it looked like a wedding band, and it was all gold. So gosh, let's see. They worked in 5 minutes. They got a wedding band. It's probably worth $1,000, so they just made their money. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Now, on ghost hunting, I think there's money to be had, and here's what I'm thinking. I think if you guys took photos and audio, which is fine, but I think the photos are tell-all in itself, because I don't think enough people do the photo thing. And I every time I turn around, somebody's like, "Oh, here's a ghost," and it's on the internet. You can't even see it. So take as many photos as you can, or take. I was talking to one guy, and my father did this too. He wrote some books on auras and that kind of thing, and he put a different film color on the actual camera itself, and different electrical colors would pop up, and like if you had red or yellow or green, you would get a different ghostly look, or you would see those little orbs in a different light. And I mean, it's pretty weird, but so you know what I'm talking about? They're the see-through colors that you could put on top of a camera. You'd literally have to tape it on there, by 1 minute, like if you had 3 different cameras, you could do one camera with a green filter, one camera with a red one, and another one with yellow, and see what the difference was. And of course, you could have a naked eye camera, and each one is going to get a different reaction. Some are going to see the ghost better than others, and I've seen that before. So I tell everybody, don't just go for the throat on thinking you're going to go in and you're going to talk to the ghost, but push the camera, because we are visual people. I mean, it's great.
Indeed, and yeah, we take tons of pictures and video and stuff with our crew, and we've actually got some pretty epic shots, full-bodied apparitions, and mostly there's orbs, but yeah, full-body apparitions, like, you just can't deny those, and you do everything you can to debunk them, retake, was it this angle, like, perhaps the lighting or whatever, but yeah, we try to debunk it if we can't, like, I mean, some of them you just can't deny. You look at it and you're like, that is a ghost. But it's great to have that.
Yeah, I agree totally. Sometimes you're probably thinking, well, because I tell people there's different kinds of ghosts. And finally I'm hearing on the TV, they go, well, it's one of my books, I was going to call it The Shadow of a Man. And nobody mentioned that before, like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And now they're finally saying, well, it's the shadow of a man or a woman, and that is a different kind of ghost. Whether we know if you can't define it whether it's evil or nice yet, but because you guys have to experience it step at a time. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure you've noticed different kinds of ghosts. I mean, you've got your orbs, and then you have your full body apparition, and then there's all sorts of stuff there, which I think the general public is not aware of it. So you guys experience a lot of things.
Yeah, I was watching a show last night called Ghost Stories, and I think it was actually set in the 80s, perhaps early 90s, and they were just set on the fact that, you either have your mists or your orbs, basically. Really? Is all they were calling it, and I was like, there's a lot more out there than that, because they all, know, they're not all on the same level, they don't all have the same knowledge, and, getting to a certain, able to project or whatever for people to see, sometimes it takes time, or maybe you're just spiritually inclined and you got it right away, which was how my mentor was, but, yeah, there's all kinds out there, so you can't just say, well, it's just this way or this. There's nothing in between, which there really is quite a bit.
No, it's really funny because how finally people are showing that when they walk up to one of your buildings that you're going to check out, you can see somebody in the window, and they're thinking, oh no, the ghost hunters put somebody up there. And I recall one time going to, I guess it was Charlestown, West Virginia, and they had all these ghost tours, and they're phenomenal because you get to go not just on the ghost tour. I mean, some of it is goofy, which is fine because they have a wax museum and so forth. But they have great food, and they have food from the Civil War era, recipes. But when you walk up, some of the houses look like they have put somebody in the window. And you're thinking, is this a joke? I mean, why is that person sitting in the window? And then, out of your 30 people that you're touring with, finally somebody speaks up and says, so who is the tour guide in the window? She goes, oh, no, that's so-and-so. He's a ghost, and he just sits there. But it's so uncanny that it's so easy to see, because you've got 20 people seeing it, and the other 10 are like, where? And the people that can see it are standing there going, it's right in front of your face. You can't see that guy sitting there?
Yeah.
I'm sure it surprises you each and every time.
Yeah, and it is funny how some people do pick up on it and some people don't. And we all have our different gifts, whether, it's feeling the spirit, seeing the spirit, or hearing the spirit, or if you got a combination of all of them. It's pretty awesome. And that's why I like to have a diverse group. It really helps get a different perspective from each angle and compare them and, go from there. I really enjoy it.
I think it's great. I'm glad you guys are willing to talk to different people. I get a little frustrated because some people can hear the ghost. Sometimes they can hear it, sometimes they can't. and they'll say, "Oh, I heard this," and I'm looking at them like, "Damn it, I wish I heard that." Excuse my language. Whoops.
Oh, no, that's fine.
So I always think, "Oh my God, James Smith got to hear it, but I didn't get to hear it. How did you do it? What'd you do? What did you do differently?" And I will tell you one of my other secrets is I tell people before you go on a ghost hunting expedition, or before you work on a missing person, or even treasure, go drink water. Our bodies are 60% water, if not more, and the water simply helps you perceive, because you're shaking it up in your body, and then eventually you have to run to the restroom, and it going through and the circulation of your body can give you visions or remote viewing. It can give you information. You can hear the audible, your paranormal audible better. And I say, drink that water, drink the water. I'm a huge water drinker. Now, some people say, oh, I'm going to have a mixed drink. Well, that's fine. But I have to be honest with you, I think the clear drinks, like a wine or a vodka or a gin or something, maybe a scotch, is fine. Of course, don't overdo it, because you're going to take off your team members. But I think that any fluid, and I'm not saying milkshakes, that I think it's too rough for the system. It's not a water product. It's not a thin liquid. I think those are going to be destructive. But I do think, because you're making your body more acidic versus alkaline, I do think water can enhance your psychic ability. And I've noticed when I drink a ton of water, my psychic ability is off the charts. And if I forget, then I have to say, oh, we're going to have to wait an hour. I got to drink a bunch of water. Have you noticed, when you go on a site, have you noticed what you eat actually affects your perception level, or you haven't noticed that?
I haven't really paid attention to it, but I am a big water drinker. I have a sister, and she won't touch the stuff. All she drinks is soda, and I'm like, how are you still alive? But yeah, I do drink a lot of water, and I make sure that that I've eaten and that I'm not compromised in any way. I've gone a couple times compromised and had adverse reactions. But yeah, make sure you're up to par and you're ready to go. Just like if you're going to work, make sure you're up to par and ready to do your work, because if not, you should just stay home. I agree. Yeah, I've had to step out a couple times because I'm like, you guys, I'm compromised. I couldn't sleep at all last night, and I don't want to put you or the client in harm's way. So, and I trust them. They're all good on their own, so they'll go and handle it. I'd rather do that than me go and something happen to me or somebody else. So I'll just stay away. I've learned my lesson on that.
Oh, that's good. Well, your sister, it could be she's just craving sugar. Unfortunately, she's too acidic. She might want to go talk to a homeopathic doctor, or she might want to go talk to a regular doctor. But eventually she's going to go into the diabetes zone because she's got too much sugar in her body. I'm not giving diagnosis or treatment, but I'm saying she needs to reevaluate the fact that there is, for example, I'm drinking Nestle's, it's called Splash, and it's flavored water. And it's awesome. And it could be she's either craving the sweet or she's craving the flavor. And she says, oh, I don't want water. But in reality, that sugar is the enemy, and it doesn't help you with your perception. Granted, it's liquid, but it's not clear liquid. I mean, tea is better, but I'm not going to lie to you. I have a coffee every morning for breakfast, and it gets caffeine gets my brain charged. But I do really think that when you're treasure hunting or ghost hunting or whatever, the fluid is one of the solutions to helping you get better at your work.
I totally agree, yeah. And, my mom and I are constantly on her, like, you need to drink some water once in a while, or, try something different. And hopefully she will, because I do agree with you completely. It's only going to lead to terrible issues.
Down the road? Oh, absolutely. I have a sister who's getting over cancer, and nothing tastes great, so she's pushing sugar, and it's ice cream. And I said, well, look, I get it, but your body has to heal, and you've got to quit doing so much. So, unfortunately, you can go from one step of sugar to another step of sugar, and it's depleting your psychic ability.
And not only that, my mentor, she died from cancer, and sugar actually feeds the cancer. And anytime, And anytime you have any sort of surgery, that's also going to send growth hormones to your cancer. So yeah, there's all kinds of variations to that, but sugar is not good for just, getting past that, I'm kind of worried about her. I hope she can figure something out with that.
Well, all you can do is say, this is what happened to past people, and you may want to try a different approach. But I'm just commenting that I have noticed that people that want to have more intuition, the adding water to the diet is fantastic. Do you want me to share with you how to incubate your dreams? Would that help people that are listeners?
Sure. That'd be great.
Okay. So this is what I do with, let's say you're going to go work on a job like ghost hunting, treasure hunting, or missing persons. And a lot of people that are listening are probably not going to do missing persons. But if you are and you're out helping with the search and rescue, the water is phenomenal. So what I do is the day before my project, so not the night of, the day before, what I do is I take a glass pitcher of water, GLASS, and I put it by my bed, and I take a glass, GLASS, and I put a regular glass. In other words, I've got the glass pitcher and a glass of water by my bed, and then I write down what I want. So let's say I'm going for buried treasure hunting, and I say, show me all the most phenomenal rings worth the most money. I mean, I literally write that down on a piece of paper. And then if it's a missing person, I say, show me, like right now they have a little baby missing out of Tennessee. Show me where baby Joe is located. So I write down baby Joe and his full name, and I write down the name of the town and the county, and show me if he's 1 mile, 10 miles, 5 miles, that kind of thing. And then let's say it's ghost hunting. I'll say, show me the room with the best ghost. Show me the room with the best ghost that I could capture on footage. And so what I do is I write that all down, and then I take my fingertips and I rub over my data or the questions. And that sounds so goofy, but your fingertips have the largest amount of nerves in it versus the sciatic nerve. So it's either your sciatic nerve, and you can't rub your sciatic nerve because it's right above your tush. But you can rub your fingers right across a paper. Your brain is like a computer. So you're putting your little disc into your brain through the fingertips, and you're touching, and you're saying, you read it and say, okay, you do the who, when, where, what, and you say, show me, and you say what you're looking for, and you touch it, and then you go to bed, and you drink your water off and on during the night. And I'm sure you've done this where the day before your project, you have to go to the restroom, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God. But when you get up to go to the restroom, it stimulates your circulation, and you have a vision or remote viewing, and you say, oh my God, I got something. And you have to write it down as quick as you can, even if you do it in bullets. So you have another pad of paper there, and you write down the bullets, what you're going to get, what room, what floor, now for you guys, there might be a piece of furniture. You know how that happens. It could be a door, it could be a window. I know the ghost likes to go here, or I got a storyline from the authenticating the scenario that we're going into. And before you know it, you've gotten up during the night. I hate to say the bad news several times, and you've gotten a ton of information. Now, I just did this experiment with a friend of mine who's, both of them are working for federal agencies, and they both tried it. They said they didn't get anything, and I said, okay, well, you guys are stubborn, so you're going to have to do it again and again and again. Keep trying. And so I've got to call them back and say, okay, did you do it for several days in a row? Because some people just block, the radio waves. And I said, listen, if I can do it, you can do it. You just have to follow the process. And it's pretty funny. I mean, to watch somebody who says they want it so bad, but then they block it, it's just funny to watch. And I said, okay, let's try a different angle. So that's one of my processes with finding missing persons and the other items. For example, in the Caylee Anthony case, I got a teddy bear in the mail. I guess it was I guess it was sent from Cindy. That was the only thing they sent me. Let me think. I'm being interrupted by my cat. That's just great.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Thank you, cat. Yeah, so if the background gets dead, it's my cat interrupting me, tearing up our furniture. Thank you for that, kitty. So on the Caylee Anthony case, I was sent a teddy bear. But here's what's interesting. On the Caylee Anthony case, I did use the incubation method, and I had told the PI and the other guy I worked with where her remains were a month after she went missing. And I was very preoccupied by my kids at the time. And, I mean, they were young. They were 7 and 10 or something. And so I don't know about you, but I'm very family oriented. And I said, okay, look, this is what I get. This is where I think it is, da-da-da. And they didn't want to hear it. And I was like, okay, look, I've got kids stuff to do, activities all summer. I'll talk to you later. And they just didn't want to hear it. And they kept making up another story and another story and another story. And it was like they wanted the saga to continue. And I thought, oh, my God, this is crazy. So eventually I called them back and said, listen, she's right here. Look for this, this, and this. And I eventually had to get on the phone with the PI and tell him where to go, where to walk. I mean, it was like walk, talk, and breathe. And the funniest thing about it was on that particular case, when I had the teddy bear and I incubated the dream with the water and all my notes, I kept hearing suburban, suburban, suburban. So I didn't have a map at all. For example, if you went to a ghost site and you only know the name of the street, where you're going to be, but then you hear some other word. So I kept hearing suburban, and I did not know, but the house I took them to was on Suburban Street. Wow. Okay, so let's say on your case, it's a ghost case, and and by the way, the PI knew it was Suburban Street. I mean, I kept saying suburban. He goes, well, I have a Suburban. Okay, well, where's your suburban? I said, well, maybe it's across the street, and you have to stay on the right side of the street. So normally I say east, north, south, and west, and I think a lot of ghost hunters don't do that enough. They need to use the oh, it's the third floor. No, you want to say east, north, south, west. And for some reason, I think the ghosts, in my theory, will respond better if you say that. Are you on the east side? Are you on the west side? Are you 10 feet away? Are you 5 feet away? If you add those little details, I think you're going to get a lot more details from a ghost in a response effort. But what I'm saying on the Anthony case, it's very similar to working a ghost case. So let's say you have a case where you have a haunted house that's a mansion, and 2 blocks away, you keep hearing the name Taylor, Taylor, Taylor. And you need to go look on the map, and you pull up you pull up the street names, and let's say you see Taylor, or you find out a residence 2 blocks down is a Taylor. Well, let me tell you a secret. It could be the ghost is haunting a house based on Taylor Street, or something on Taylor Street, or something that was on Taylor Street, or is still on Taylor Street. Sometimes a lot of ghost hunters don't look at a bigger picture, and I think that I'd like to nudge them and say, look, don't forget, there could have been a fire on Taylor Street, somebody got killed, and the ghost who was a victim of the situation is now haunting the mansion. And people go, oh, because you don't know why sometimes ghosts appear, why they do appear or don't appear, you know. It's one of those things. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and, you know, I think it's all in free agency. Does the ghost want to communicate or not? If they don't want to, you know, they don't have to. There's nothing there making them communicate. But, yeah, it can be complicated sometimes. Sometimes it takes a few times to get out there to, you know, gain their trust or whatever it may be. But, yeah, it can be a complicated process. And the fact that the investigator was not even paying attention to the street in the area where, you know, searches and whatnot may have been going on. Yeah, I go to Suburban.
Yeah, go to Suburban, Donnie. Do you ever ask them about footage or north or south, or are you linked with a house 2 doors down? You can also douse that out and say, are you, because I call it the link, And that'll be one of the chapters in my book. And basically what a lot of people don't understand is, I'll just say this in a nice way, and it's a little ugly, but I don't know if Casey Anthony killed her kid. Okay, we don't know if the kid drowned. I felt like the kid was either suffocated or something unusual. Could have been drowning and suffocation. They feel the same. But it could be that it wasn't by Casey, and Casey took the brunt of it, and she's protecting somebody else. And the tragedy is that everybody hates this woman, and they keep dwelling on it, and you can't get them to move on, so you have to say to them, listen, what if another family member tried something, it didn't work, the kid died from it, they tried to resuscitate, and then Casey found the kid, and the kid had died. Children die from all sorts of stuff. You've heard of babies getting SIDS. You've heard of babies there was a woman here in Virginia, she left her kid with a friend, and it was sitting in a swing, one of those swings in your house.
Yeah.
And the kid was throwing up because the woman left the room, and they were so scared, and it died on its own vomit. I mean, a lot of people are unaware of the fact that things do happen. And unfortunately, this ridiculous case of people dwelling on the Casey Anthony case is just, it's just sad. I mean,
yeah.
For example,
well, Ginette, on that note,
ahead.
we have to go to our first break, but you guys don't go anywhere.
Great.
We'll be right back with Psychic Ginette Lucas.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa N Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is Tessa TNT with you tonight. Dave Scott could not be here, but he will be back tomorrow, and I'm eagerly happy to be back with you guys. We're going to switch it up a little bit here. I do have a number more questions for our guests, but we have people on the East Coast that are just dying to call in. So we may receive some calls within this next hour, and we are also taking calls in hour 3. Welcome back, Jeannie.
Hey, hi. Thanks again for having me. And, we talked about maybe having some people call in. So if they call you, do you want to give out your number? They can call and ask a couple questions. And I'm sure they're going to pose questions for you, too, because you're the ghost hunter.
Yeah, no worries. Our phone number is 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596 for those of you out there who would like to call in.
Yep, it's great. So tell me, I'll give you tell me 3 things you want to hear about my work, which might interest you. Is there anything of my work that might interest you the most? Have you found something that you're not strong enough in that I could contribute to help you get better at your work?
Hold on one second. We got a call coming in, and we have area code 954. Who are we talking to? Area code 954. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, my name is Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm calling the radio station, the Spaced Out Radio, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to be sure. I didn't want to call anybody this late at night. Be rude.
So what's your question, Jim? Did you have a question?
Yeah. I've been to psychics before, classes and talks and seminars, and I was wondering, a lot of them report having side effects from their abilities. They get tired, worn out. Are there any side effects to dowsing that you can talk about?
I would say that based on my work, it's like a time card. I plug it in the morning at a certain time between 9 and 10, and then I plug out at 6 o'clock, and I try not to take more calls. Now, if it's an emergency call or a client I know they're working on a project like a real estate project, or they're out in the field on treasure hunting, I'll take the call, try to wrap it up as quickly as possible, and I stop. I put the brakes on, and I say, okay, look, I have limitations. And because I do that, I tend not to be so tired. But unfortunately, I've noticed this year, because of the pollen and the allergies, I've been a little bit more of a subdued person in the morning. And so I have to drink a second cup of coffee with caffeine or tea with caffeine. And then I seem to be back on track. I know that I've noticed if I focus too hard on a case, I could get extremely tired. And I noticed that, as bad as this sounds, I can work with treasure hunters or ghost hunters or whoever, and some of them are draining, and then some are not at all. So that's why I like ghost hunting, because I'm not the one in the field, they are, and they're the ones who are going to get, I guess, energy zapped, not me, typically. But if I'm uncomfortable, I'll tell them right up front, okay, here's my input, I'm going to walk away. So what's your take on that, Tessa? Do you get exhausted from doing too much intuition? And if so, how do you react to it?
Actually, it really depends on the case. Sometimes I'm fine, and other times I feel like I've been hit by a Mack truck. And actually, one of those was recent. It really drained our whole crew. We had a preliminary meeting with this person, and luckily we had a class that day for Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, and it was going over energy work and, how to clear your chakras, or your there's certain different terms for it, whatever you're doing, whether it's an Oriental thing or Tai Chi or whatnot. But the more and more exercises I did, the better I felt. It was quite amazing. We were all very drained and not really wanting to be there, and then by the end of the class, we were all so glad that we did come and didn't go home and take that nap that we wanted. But, clearing your energy and, before going into an investigation, I would recommend some shielding. Afterwards, do some grounding. Grounding is a big thing. Get your body right, get your light right, and get back on track, because it can be very draining and detrimental to you at times. But just make sure you take care of yourself physically and spiritually. And like Ginette said, make sure you drink lots of water. That's a really big thing as well.
Well, I've only dabbled in the dowsing, and I found that each time I did it, I have a lot more energy. So I was wondering in the field work. I was wondering if Ginette ever experienced anything like that.
Well, when I've done dowsing, especially the first time I did it, I could not believe the amount of energy, like you were saying, that came through me. And the person that was doing the tour with us, she's like, "You're shaking really bad right now. Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just like overwhelmed by the energy that's flowing through me right now." And some people say it's a spirit working through your dowsing rods. Some people say it's just your own internal ticks and clicks, working it. I'm not really quite sure what's going on at the moment, but I have not really been drained doing it, but I have been drained on certain investigations. But dowsing for sure, yeah, like you were saying, you do get that energy amp up. And sometimes, grounding as well is good for that, to come back down from that energy amp.
Right. I think limiting yourself to doing a certain project one at a time is always good. Sometimes I'm in desperation mode because a cop will call or somebody will call and say, "Hey, I need this job done right away." Like today I had three calls, one on real estate, one on a missing bracelet, and one on romance, and everybody was in a hurry to get an answer quickly, and I had to get on the phone, assess it quickly as best as I could, and get off the phone because I had to get ready for the radio show for tonight and make sure I covered as much as I could for the listeners. But I didn't burn myself out, which was great. Does that help, Jim?
Thank you very much. Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
No worries. You have a great evening and a good night's rest.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for calling in. Well, that was a good question, and that brings me on to another question. Do you feel that anyone can douse?
I do. I think most people can douse. I don't think that a lot of people know there's a process, and I think that, now you were taught by your grandmother, so you had that show me application going on, and I think that it needs to be repetitive. So if you took a class, you have to say, "Show me how to find something and hide something in the room. Show me how to find a glass of water. Show me how to find a teddy bear. Show me how to find coinage." I'm not quite sure why, but when it comes to finding things, if you ask the correct question, you're going to find the answer. For example, today my friend called about the missing bracelet, and I said, it's near something green. I can feel the color green. That sounds so goofy, but that's what I felt. And he didn't find it yet, so it means to me his bracelet, for example, I felt like I was on the floor. So I said, okay, I'm on the floor, and I'm near a piece of furniture, near a leg, and you can't see it because it's overshadowed. So literally he may have to grab his vacuum cleaner and suck it up and then pull out the bag with the vacuum cleaner and check and see if it's in there. I mean, just the other day that happened to me. I dropped a pendulum, and I was going to send it off as a gift to somebody, and I couldn't find it, and I thought, well, let me see if I vacuum, I'll notice it. But darn it, I messed up, and what happened was the noise from the vacuum cleaner was so loud, I never heard that pendulum go into the vacuum cleaner, and I threw out the pendulum. Dummy me. But, so what I'm saying is, whenever you work on a project, you've got to have that process. You really have to have a process. You have to plan. I call it the plan. You have to have a plan. And in dowsing, if you say you want to stick with yes or no, that's fine. But if you say, show me, and you can do a number, like you could do a number compass system, and you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you can say, show me which floor I should be on to find the ghost or get the ghost in a picture. And you could do floor 1. Are you located on floor 1? Are you located on floor 2, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to pinpointing more for ghosts and that kind of thing, I do think you need to be more detailed. And I do think you need to ask a ton more questions. You don't want to sit there and waste hours and hours waiting for these guys to show up or girls to show up or entities to show up. So I think that if you, I don't mean to be rude and say this, it's like throwing a baseball on the wall to see what happens. I think you could get a lot more great pictures and great info if you just keep hitting it with question after question after question. A lot of the TV shows we see, the standard fan sees, like, I guess, Zach Bagan, or however you say his name, he, he'll just say, "Are you here? Who are you?" And but I think that if you hit with a lot more questions, like, "Are you part of this property? Are you stuck here?" I mean, just ask like 100 questions in different directions, and you'd be surprised you're going to get a lot more answers. And that's what dowsing is all about. That's what I think.
Yeah, and it is a great tool, and you can get a lot of answers from that. So are there like any types of exercises or anything you do to build upon your gifts, whether it's psychically or through your dowsing? You were talking about these practices of locating, just small objects at first, such as a cup of water or a teddy bear or whatnot. How do you build upon that?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'll do is, first somebody just texted me a note and sent a note on Facebook, so they were wondering if you could give out the telephone number of your show again, if you don't mind.
Okay,
for
no
calling
worries.
in purposes.
It's 970-335-9596. That's 970-335-9596.
Okay, so let me just say this. Years ago, I was interviewed by an author. His name was Jack Hope. And Jack Hope was writing an article for the Smithsonian Magazine, and he was strictly focusing in on dowsing. And when he did, he interviewed a bunch of guys mostly the guys that were water dowsers. And what was so funny was I was one of the few females that had caught his eye about the dowsing, because I used it for missing objects and missing people and almost anything and everything. And he came over to me and he goes, "Listen, a bunch of people here think you're a fake or a fraud." I said, "Really?" I said, "Oh my God, that's terrible." And he said, "Well, let's do this. I'm going to have you find something for me, and I'm going to ask all these people to find something for me, and if you're a fake, I'm going to tell the world you're a fake in the article." I said, "Okay, that's fine." I mean, we're talking dowsing. It's not exactly the toughest. Unfortunately, you see a lot of TV shows where dowsers go out and they try to find a missing object or count the coins or whatever. And I don't get nervous about it because I know I can rely on dowsing. It's very consistent. So he called me and he said, "All right, I need you to find me a missing object." I said, "Okay, let's use my process." I said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "I am looking for a file folder." So you write down file folder. And you can't just write down file folder. You have to write down whose file folder. So you have to write down Jack Hope's file folder. And then you go, what is the topic? So let's say it's regarding James Smith. So the file folder is going to say James Smith. And I write down, what I do is I get people, let's say it was in his house. So you write down a floor plan of his house, which is also a map. So I write down the interior, and then I have him draw the exterior. So let's say he's in a house, and I say his house is like 2,300 square feet. Is it rectangle? So you write the rectangle, and it's one floor, and here are the bedrooms. Like here's bedroom 1, bedroom 2, and you can label them master bedroom or bedroom 1, bedroom 2, and so forth. And let me see, mark the bathroom. Anyway, so when I was getting ready to do the process, I said, this sounds really goofy, but I'm dowsing, and we're writing down the process of the exterior you're building, the interior you're building, the mapping. Before we continue on that, this is what I tell everybody. When you're dowsing, you actually you jump into a delta or theta state. And that's a known fact from scientists or doctors. And what happens is you actually see the remote viewing or the vision, and you see something. We have to pay attention to that because it's going to pay off. So I said to Jack, "Jack, this sounds really goofy, but I'm seeing the trunk of your car. You've got something in the trunk of your car. And if it's not the file folder, it's something else that you've been looking for." And I've told people all along, when you say you're looking for something missing, you're going to find other objects that are, quote, quote, missing. So he goes, no, Ginette, it's not in the car. I said, okay, just go to the trunk of your car and go look in the trunk of your car, and I want you to go to the right side of your car. At that time, I don't think we used the north method, but I said go to the right side of your car in the trunk, which is the passenger side, and go next to this, this, and this. And he goes, okay. So he went into the right side of his car, and he goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, move things around. I said, tell me what's there. And I just kept dowsing, and I kept seeing. So I said, just show me. So because the pendulum was spinning, I think it creates a current, or like a TV reception, or a antenna to get a vision. And I said, I see this, this, and this. I said, move that aside, and you're going to find something right there. He just got all upset, and he goes, I got to call you right back. I said, okay. And he finally called me back a few minutes later, and he goes, I cannot believe you sent me to the trunk of the car. What happened, this is what he told me happened. 2 years before that, and we all know that there are legal laws with 2 years, if you're going to sue somebody, you have to have your paperwork turned in prior to 2 years, or you can have a lawsuit. And he was in a car wreck, and he lost the paperwork on the car wreck, and his lawsuit was going to be filed it had to be filed within 2 weeks. So it was 2 weeks before that. Wait a minute, 2 years before that. So when I told him to move the paperwork, which is what I do a lot to people, I explain other casework, he moved it, and he found this legal paperwork, and he goes, I was looking for that for 2 years, and you sent me to the trunk of the car, and we found this paperwork. I can file my lawsuit, and I'm going to win because I have my legal paperwork now. But had I waited 2 weeks, I would have lost thousands of dollars. So if you apply that to ghost hunting or treasure hunting, sometimes you're pushed in a different direction, and you have to follow that direction. And sometimes you have to do that particular missing object first, or that particular ghost first, or that, like the ring I found. I sent the guys to the ring, and I said, I don't feel anything else. So that day when they were out, they didn't find anything else. They did metal detect the whole acreage, the entire acreage, but nothing else was to be had. So on Jack's situation, he had to go to the car first. He found the legal paperwork, and that sent him, I think, into more of a positive, receptive mode, and he seemed much happier. And I said, okay, now we're going to go back to your building and back to your house. The file folder you're looking for is in your house. And so what we did was we narrowed down the room that he had to go to. And I said, it feels like an office, so let's go douse out the office. So I said, okay, I feel like I'm in an office, and I feel like I'm at a desk, and it looks like, and I described it. I said, I feel like I'm at a Navy surplus gray desk. And Navy surplus means what the military used to use, or they're selling. Excuse me. And it was so funny. He goes, okay, I've got a very weird desk. All right. And I said, sit at the desk. And he goes, Ginette, I've already been here. And he was very reluctant to even look. And I said, okay, take your hand and put it to the right. What's sitting there? I feel like I have file drawers. He goes, I have file drawers. I said, okay, go to the second one down. Because that's what I'm telling people. When you douse, you can ask footage and you can ask for drawer number 2. So I said, go to drawer number 2. And he went to drawer number 2. And I said, okay, open drawer number 2. He opens drawer number 2. I said, I'm going to tell you something goofy. Just follow my lead. And he goes, okay. And again, resistance. And it was so weird. So I said, this sounds really funny. And this is what I want to teach people when they're doing ghost hunting or whatever. I said, I see something red. So the first thing in my mind was, you're looking at file folders, you're in a file drawer, go to the red file folder. And he goes, why? I said, just go to the red file folder. And he goes, okay. And I said, it feels like Christmas. And he looks at the red file folder, and I said, pull it up. What does it say? And he goes, Christmas. That's a Santa. I said, okay, I know this sounds goofy. I want you to, and this is important for you, Tessa, I said, I want you to go behind the file folder and in front of the file folder. And he goes, why? And I said, because that's probably where your missing file folder is. And he went right there, and there it was. And he wrote about me, and I'm a half a page in the Smithsonian Magazine, and he just couldn't believe it. He goes, I don't know how you did that. From your home in Virginia, I was in Fairfax at the time, and he was in New York City. So there it is. You know, dowsing has a process. It works great, and you have to make a plan. But if you noticed, I followed where I was being shown to go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say you're doing a ghost hunt, and you're being told to go to the backyard. You don't know why you're being told to go to the backyard, because you say, show me this, show me, show me, show me. And suddenly you're in the backyard, and you're like, what the hell am I looking for? It could be right in front of your face. So you get a metal detector, or you look around, or you get gloves on, and sometimes you can literally see a stone marked, and it can have a name on it that's applicable to the circumstance or to the ghost. And you can say to the ghost, hey, is this important to you? Is this a link to you? And you can find cemetery stones not knowing they're there. And a lot of people don't think outside the box when it comes to dowsing, and I think that's why I'm a lot more accurate on dowsing than most people. Mm-hmm. But the good news is Jack found both of his missing objects and used, he followed my approach to looking for them. I don't think everybody would do that. Period. I just think 50% of the nation is going to say, no, I'm not going to look there. That's stupid. But you'd be surprised. I mean, it really is quite a surprise.
Yeah, it really is a surprise indeed. I mean, I've been surprised at details that I've found and such with my dowsing rods. But on that note, we have a call from area code 614. Who are we speaking with?
This is Rachel from Ohio.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi. I don't have really a question, but I have a comment, and I don't know if Ginette remembers me, but we've worked a couple of times. I've called her when I've had trouble with missing animals, and she has been very accurate and very interesting. A friend of mine just recently, her dog was hit by a car, and he ran into the woods, and we couldn't find him. I mean, he darted and was just gone. So I called Ginette, and she was really, really helpful. She got on the phone right away, even though she was a little harried because it was an emergency situation and I didn't really have, an appointment set up. But she did some dowsing work, and I think with the animals it's pretty difficult because they're moving. But what she had told us about him was that we would find him sometime around 4 o'clock, and I think it was around 1 when he was hit, around noon or 1, and then I got to my friend's house around 2, and she said that he would be licking his wounds in the woods, and we were kind of skeptical about licking his wounds because we were thinking, well, did he have an actual open cut wound? But she also said that he had a broken leg, but that he was going to be okay. We just had to find him and get him to the vet, because if we didn't find him, before nightfall, then it wasn't going to be good. But she did say, we'd find him by 4. So sure enough, around 10 till 4, her husband found him in the woods, and he had a big cut on his leg. It must have been where the bumper hit his leg and took some of the skin off. Mm-hmm. And he was laying there licking his leg, and he had a really bad broken leg, and we had to get him to the vet and get his leg pinned back together. So that was really great. And so I called Ginette another time when my kitty went missing, and it wasn't quite as a sad story, but he got out, and I couldn't find him, and I was panicked. And Ginette, do you remember this, Ginette? Do you remember me?
I do. I do.
How could you forget? I was a panic attack. But so I live in a really rural area with barns and things like that all around. And she kept saying, well, go to the concrete steps. There's concrete steps, and he's around there. And he got really startled by a brindle dog. There's a couple dogs. Well, my one neighbor has barns, and he has 2 dogs at the barns. And she's like, he's fine. He's fine. He's just out having fun. I think for some reason he's mad at you, which she's probably right, because I wouldn't let him go play outside. I kept thinking, concrete stuff, that can't be right, because he would never go up to someone else's door because he's afraid of people. That makes no sense. So, but I followed what she said, and I went over the neighbor's country fence, and I was walking back in their field, and I found this old set of like concrete steps that were thrown back there. They must have come from a trailer or something, and they were all grown up kind of in the weeds. And in front of those steps, like to the side, probably about 25 feet away, was the barn. And I'm thinking, I bet he's over there. So I went looking for him over there, and I didn't see him. He probably was hiding in there. But she said he was around that area, and he wasn't going to go. And so I was so panicked. She kept saying, he's fine. She said, okay, just relax. Let me try this. He's going to come back sometime in the 8 o'clock hour. I don't know if it's the 8 o'clock hour today or the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow night, but he's going to come back in that 8 o'clock hour within some 24 hours. So I went to work the next day. He didn't come home all night. I was basket case. And I went to work. I was panicked. And when I came home from work, and I think it was like around 8:40, he was waiting in the garage for me. So I was really grateful. So those are just my little tidbit about how dowsing can also be used. I mean, it finds missing people and things like that, but also animals as well.
Animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, and she could use that too for ghost hunting, because a lot of times they probably forget, and I forget, that animals are linked to the ghosts also, because it could be somebody looking for their dog or cat, or an actual dog or cat can actually see the ghost, and they're hanging around the dog or cat. I mean, there's so many variables when it, I'm sure Tessa's seen a ton of variables when it comes to ghost hunting.
Yeah, there are tons out there. And, I've always known that animals are spiritual beings, but I had never seen an animal ghost until I believe it was 2000 or 2001. I actually saw a ghost cat in my house a couple times. And
ooh, neat.
Yeah, I almost stepped on it one time, and then another time it ran through and hid behind the couch, and I looked everywhere for the sucker, and I just could not find it anywhere, and I was like, wow, that is amazing. And I've also seen, a ghost deer run in front of my car, and you can see the front portion of it, but the back portion was just like a smear of light, kind of like a tracer or whatever you would call it, but it's pretty interesting, and it, just backs up, my knowledge that animals do have spirits, and they're not just dumb creatures. They have feelings and wants and needs as well, but that's so awesome. I'm glad she could help you find your kitty and your dog and stuff.
Yeah, that was my friend's dog. Yeah, but I was really, really, really happy, and if I have any more animal issues, I'm definitely calling her, because he's really accurate with the animals with us.
Yeah, and that can be so hard because they are like a part of your family,
Oh, they are. Something happens, it's massive stress, big time. And Jeanette, if she remembers, I panic. And I had to put her on the phone with my friend whose dog got hit, and she was crying. And I know that can probably be distracting, and, you're feeling the distressed person's energy and yet trying to focus on the animal. And, they're in distress. My kitty wasn't in distress. He was just being naughty, but the dog was. But the dog is a happy ending. He's fine now, and he's really ornery, and he's getting along good.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. That's awesome input.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for calling, Rachel. That was really nice of you.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll tune back into the show now.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you something really funny. I'll share with you a funny story if that helps you, Tessa. I did a case recently where somebody called and said, I have a missing pair of keys, and I said, well, how many cars are at the house right now? And they were car keys, and they said 5. I said, okay, so I need to know the set of keys go to a certain car. So what kind of car are you driving? So they said like a let's say it's a Toyota, I can't recall, one of those Toyotas. So I said, okay, so it's a Toyota Camry. I said, okay, cool. I said, so whose car does it belong to? And the girl, let's call her Kara, and Kara goes, it's my boyfriend. So I said, okay, let me talk to your boyfriend. So you're getting the vibe or the link from the boyfriend. And I said, okay, so tell me about your car. And he goes, well, it's blue with a black interior, and I'm dowsing while we're talking. And I said, because I use those terms, show me where the keys are. And it was really, I just kept hearing the letter L, L, L. And I thought, and I kept seeing a sofa. And I said, did you guys check the sofa? And it fell into the sofa. And they go, yeah, we checked the sofa. Well, okay, we're talking a house that's like a $900,000 house in Richmond, okay? I mean, we're talking 6,000 square feet. It's a big house. And they did not tell me that they checked all the sofas in the house. And that was key. So they checked the first one, but they didn't check the second one. And the second one was an L, like a sectional, like L-shaped sectional. And they didn't check that one. So had they originally followed my lead, I said, I see a sofa and I see an L. And I didn't know because I hadn't been to that house yet. These are friends of mine. And I said, I just get L, L, L. And they didn't follow my lead. I said, but you sure you checked the sofa? Yeah. No. They didn't go to the second sofa. I mean, it was just too funny. Now, here's what's really interesting on the case is it wasn't his car. And I said, so let's call him Joey. I said, Joey, I'm not getting a lot of reaction. Like when you're dowsing, I tell a lot of people, if you don't get a reaction, something is not quite right. Either your question is not quite right or the information you're giving isn't right. And I said, Joey, is this your car, really? And he goes, well, actually, hold on, I'm yawning. It's almost quarter of 2 here in Virginia. I said, Joey, so whose car is it? And he goes, well, it's Kara's mom's girlfriend's car.
Oh.
I said, what? So I said, put Kara on. So Kara gets back on the phone, and this is before they found the keys. And I said, Kara, you said it was your boyfriend's car. Yeah, well, he's driving it. All right, when you want to be accurate on finding what you're looking for, whether it's ghost hunting, using your psychic ability or your dowsing ability, you have to make sure when you do the question plan, who, what, when, where, how, you have to write down specifically whose house it is. Like originally, let's say Mr. Smith owned the house, write down house previously owned by Mr. Smith, because the ghost could be linked to Mr. Smith. But Mr. Davis's family is there now. Maybe Mr. Davis is not involved at all. Do a whole second sheet on Mr. Davis and do the who, what, when, where, how, and you will see a difference in the reaction with your psychic ability, your photographing, everything. I don't know if that will help you, but it was hilarious. And it turned out the car wasn't even the girlfriend's car. It was somebody else's car. She borrowed a car from somebody, lent it to her girlfriend, and the girlfriend lent it to Kara. Kara lent it to her boyfriend. So we don't even know whose car it was.
Jeez.
And so, yeah. So what I tell people, what is more critical is you do need that term, that Joe Kenda question, just the facts, ma'am. You know, love the Joe Kenda out there. And get those facts, because if you don't have the right facts, you're not going to get so many great photographs that you need. And I think that might help you a little bit, because sometimes you can be misled by the client. I mean, you can have clients sitting there literally lying to you. Oh, yeah, everything's fine. It's not from our house. Don't believe that. Go in with a very suspicious attitude. Oh, okay. You know, so I want to share that with the public that, you know, don't lie to the person helping you. Give the correct information. Just say, I don't know whose car it is. This is the kind of car, this is the kind of plate, and you can put that on your little cheat sheet, and before you know it, you'll get the right answers. But if you don't have the right information, it's going to take you longer to get the information that you need that can help you solve the problem.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's frustrating. So do you want to share one of your ghost cases where you've had your most frustration with the client?
Well, we had one, and it was one of our darker cases, and this was in Bloomfield, New Mexico, because we do take care of the Four Corners area, so we go Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, or Arizona. And the client is telling me about these attacks, how her husband has been ripped off the couch, all kinds of different things. And then the more I talked to her, the more she opened up. And she did have quite a bit of past with abuse and abandonment and being in a group home. And, we helped with the cleansing. We actually found a portal in the house and dealt with that. But also, we let her know that this could be connected to that trauma, and she needs to go and get that help for herself, as well as the situation she's going through. And she and her husband, being quite religious people, are wanting to blame it on something else, and they don't want to face the problem head on. So I don't know if she ever did get help. I do know that one of the entities from there did follow me home, because they do try to scare you off when you're getting a little too close. But it was just very frustrating for us because she just would not acknowledge that she did have an issue, and she had it in the workplace, at home, everywhere. It's important to deal with those problems that are, dwelling, right below the surface or in the back of your mind or wherever they may be. Deal with those issues, and that will help your paranormal problems as well. And, you as a person being stronger and having that faith and belief in yourself and not being the victim anymore. That's a very important thing. But yeah, that was the most frustrating. We've had people not wanting to fill out the questionnaires with, drug portions of it or other aspects of it, and it can play a big role as well. But people are people, and some things they want to share and some things they don't. But the more info you share, like you were saying, the more honest you're being with us, the better the outcome of this process.
Well, right. Sometimes I think it's almost like opening a door to, I'm welcoming you to solve the problem. I'm welcoming you to, let's move forward. Let's take the next step. I don't care whether you do drugs or not. That's your issue, not mine. But I do need to figure out what is causing the problem. Like right now, I was just getting on that particular case, it felt like a little boy, and it could very well be that the husband had anger that you guys came to the house. And of course, I've seen previous shows on ghost hunting, and anger can really cause problems. Things thrown at you. She could have been angry at her husband. Her family could have been angry at her husband. And so it was coming from an outside influencing factor. And then suddenly some entity goes home with you, not good. And so something is pissed off at you. I hate to use that term, but oh my gosh, that could have been the husband, could have been the wife. But I felt a male presence, and that meant to me somebody is unhappy that you came and you were trying to influence the change in the equation. And of course, there's super frustration from that entity's factor. And you're sitting here going, oh, my God, now I've got to clean my house. I've got to clean myself and so forth and so on. I do want to share with you, when I grew up, I took in college a college course on spirituality, and I took a course on ministry. And what was interesting was, I don't know if it was Buddha or a Chinese method of similar to Feng Shui or similar to acupuncture. And you can actually, what they call is zipping up. And you can zip up your body so that it's like wearing an invisible jumpsuit to prevent any entities from following or attaching themselves to you. So it's sort of a formal way of, it's like an invisible ballet. So you take your left or right arm and you pretend you're doing a plie, but you're not putting your knees down. You're standing up there normally, and you're taking your hand as if it's pointed outward, and you go down and you plie. But what you do is you say, I'm closing up my 7 chakras. And you go right in front of yourself and say, close, close, close. And what happens is you will not get sick, typically. And again, it's this Chinese acupuncture approach, and it's really good and it's very helpful. And you might want to try that next time you go out and see if you feel better doing what I call zipping up or closing your chakras. Another thing you could try, which also creates more energy during the process of the interview and the sleepovers, frightening sleepovers with ghosts, is that I also do I ground myself with water. So what I do is I go over to the sink and I use hot water, and I wash my hands, and I say, I send all negativity down the drain. And I do the same thing with cold water, and I say, I am closing all the negativity and sending it down the drain, not to affect me, this house, or anyone with us. And for some reason, you still have your energy. You're not wasted. You're not exhausted. You're not overwhelmed, and you can continue on your project. And try it, and you'll see if it helps you, and you'll say, wow, that's really different. But if you try it consistently, you're going to say, wow, my energy really did stay with me. It's a unique approach, but it's not my approach. It was the Asian, or I guess your Chinese method of holistic assistance you can get, and see if it'll work for you, because I've found it to be amazing. And secondly, if you guys consider acupuncture, not saying that it's treatment or diagnosis, you may find that it helps you a lot prior to going on a project, keeping your energy up and sustaining your energy. I mean, I'm sure you guys get zapped all the time.
Yeah, it happens sometimes, but not very often. And that was one of those cases where I did learn not to go when I'm compromised. And I was on that one, and I was on another one that was just right up the road here. And so, yeah, that was part of my learning process. And, you know, I do the ball of light sort of thing. You grow it in your hand, and then you make it encompass your whole body. And that one generally works. Right. And so, yeah, but I do really believe in Chinese and other methods. There's so many things out there that work. You know, it just depends on what you have faith in or what you believe in, really. But we do have a question in the chat room, and this one is from Corey, and he says, about 20 years ago, I had a dream that I found a missing child. A mentor told me that one day I would find the missing child, but I haven't experienced that as of yet. Any thoughts of my future in that regard? I do belong to a Dowsing group, so know of the process, but don't really do it a lot.
Well, you know, when it comes to, and this is really interesting, I'm going to apply his perception. First of all, it's a perception that he had, that it was a dream. So he needs to write down a lot. There's also the Association of Dreams in D.C., and they have chapters across the U.S., to my knowledge. And now the Edgar Cayce group is there. They're not my favorite. They're good. They might give a class, but it might be $500. The Association of Dreams, their classes are going to be a lot cheaper, a lot more interesting. And I'm sure the American Society of Dowsers, can get a lecturer to come in on a dream. But my first impression is, what you do is you say, okay, I had a dream about a missing person. Okay, is it a baby, a kid? Is it an adult? So you have to isolate what you're looking for. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? All right. You have to ask yourself, show me on Dowsing, is it a recent missing person? And you have to pinpoint the time frame within the last 10 years. If it says yes, then you can say, is it, like, we're at 2018. So you say, is it from 2017? And it'll tell you yes or no. 2016. And you keep going on and testing the process. And then you say, is it from my area within 100 miles? And then you narrow it down. And you say 10 miles, 5 miles, that kind of thing. And show me what the reason is for me to help you find this child. And what you have to do is say, okay, it's missing. And then you can say, is it in a house? Is it in a yard? Is it buried? Is it dead? Is it alive? You have to ask 100 questions. A lot of times people will use that. It's 101 ways to find a missing person, or 101 ways to solve the crime. The problem with a person missing in a house is nobody's going to listen to you. The cops are not going to open the door. I have a case right now where it's out of the country. I've been paid for it, but I can't get the cops to return my calls. So you got a 50-50 shot. So I tell people right up front, look, when I'm working on a case, there's no guarantees in their refunds. If it's a charity case, typically they pay very little, like even your gas for $50. When it's a paying case, they would rather pay a PI $150,000 than a dowser or a psychic $150 or $600. I tell people, don't go overboard on the missing person. You have to also say, when you're having dreams, show me the link to this missing person. And is it a cop? And, is the cop the killer, or is the cop the helper? And so you have to start isolating and isolating and isolating. It's so crazy. I mean, literally, you're working at 101 questions. It's ridiculous. But eventually, you could find somebody right now, because he's not acting on it. It's going to sit on the shelf. And I tell people, you're sitting on the shelf. So what his first step is to contact the American Society of Dowsers and say, can you get a dream specialist in here? Can you get a search and rescue person in here? There's another thing that's really cool is because we have the internet, you can, if it's a little boy, you can say, all right, I'm going to go over and I'm going to Google the missing people in, for example, let's say it's a town in Sacramento. I'd say, show me pictures of all the kids between ages 10 and 12 and that are missing. And you get a picture list, and let's say it's Hispanic. So you say only Hispanics. You can literally isolate what you're looking for. Let's say it's a blonde kid who's Hispanic. Then you put in a blonde kid, and you can start pinpointing all the details, doing that kind of thing. But a lot of people think, oh, I had a dream, I'm going to solve this. No, if you sit on it and you don't do anything, it's going to be just that, a dream. So now your next action is to take action.
So yeah, and he's saying, no, I would find missing children in the future, so perhaps that's something in his future that he might be doing?
I don't see him taking any action right now. I see him sitting in a chair. So my first impression is, if you're going to do it, get involved with the search and rescue teams, get involved with the police department and say, how can I get on the volunteer list? Because what they do now, which is going to be a big surprise to a lot of counties, is they want a picture of your driver's license, and they want verification of who you are and why are you here. And so all they do is say, what's your driver's license and why are you here? And you go, I just want to help. I mean, they've got cases all the time where people come over. We had a missing autistic child here, and 2,000 people showed up. Out of 2,000 people, I guess only a couple hundred were asked to go. They want you physically fit. They want you to not have a record. If you have any kind of record, you're not going anywhere. Cops are not going to let you on the property. They're getting pickier and pickier. I have friends in Tennessee. They are hunting down missing kids and missing people and that kind of thing, which is exceptional. And they're banding together as a team, as a group, and they're going to tell the cops, okay, we're going to go over to this acreage from 01 to 50 acres, and we're going to hunt for the missing little baby. That's very impressive. And yeah, they'll probably find the baby. They may not find it today, but they are putting out the effort. So it's time for him to get going and find groups that are involved with these search and rescue processes.
Those are.
Do I see him finding it? Yeah. Do I see him finding anybody? Not till he takes that first footstep.
Nice. Yeah, I
don't get anything for a while. I'm sorry.
Yeah, those are good instructions and great advice for him as far as, what direction to go. Because sometimes you do get froze up, like, what do I do first? Or where do I go? Or do I wait for a case to come up? But getting established in a group and, getting that sort of repertoire with them and going from there is a good way to start. Because you never know when one's going to hit, whether it's in your state or a connecting state or whatnot. So that was a good question.
Yeah, Yeah, like on ghost hunting, you don't know which person on the team is going to be the luckiest to capture that ghost. You just don't know. And he could be with his group, and he's the one who finds the body each and every time. Why? You don't know. It just happens. But because he's joining this group, he's a team member, he could learn from other people, and he goes, oh, my God, I just found remains. And, of course, you can find a body, et cetera, et cetera. I do find that there is a pattern with missing persons. For example, there's a woman who is on the Internet, and she just mentioned there's over 2,000 missing indigenous women. And I was not shocked. Indigenous women are not counted as human beings on the earth. And they're just basically, it's a missing person. They're not even labeled male or female. It's really sad. American Indians are just left out in the cold. I mean, it's almost like people just, shirk it off, and that's not important. But because the oil or gas lines came in, the construction crews came in, they're very suspicious that they may have something to do with some of these missing persons cases. Or maybe somebody feels more freedom that they can attack a female because they know the laws are not going to be pressuring, and they can go ahead and rape or pillage or kill somebody and get away with it for a time frame. I think that there's like 5 standpoints when you're working on crime and missing persons. A, are you on the team to go help do search and rescue? B, are you with the canines? C, are you with the cops? Are you with the group that is your own little team? I mean, it's very complicated, but yes, he can contribute, but do I see it right now? No. It could be within 8 years. It could be also, I got the number 8, so it could be 8 months from now. If he's in California, 8 months from now would be, and this is what I do, so we're in July, so we go August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So between February and March, he may end up finding somebody. But right now, I would lean toward 5 or 6 years because he's got to take his first step, and that's joining a team. Critical.
Well, on that note, we need to go to our second break. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you tired of being blocked,
Okay,
shadow
so we
banned,
have,
or placed in jail for
7
simply
minutes and 10
posting your
seconds.
thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room. and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa N Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Hey guys, this is Tessa TNT filling in for Dave, and he will be back tomorrow to be with all you wonderful listeners. tonight we have Ginette Lucas, who is a psychic, a writer, as well as a quite proficient dowser. Welcome back, Ginette.
Thank you. So what would you like to cover now? Do you want to cover something more fun, like maybe treasure?
Yes, and that actually goes along the lines of our next question from the chat room.
Okay, great.
Trip is asking, have you helped anyone find any treasure?
I have. I just mentioned the one from about a month and a half ago, but here's an exciting case. I was going to a dowsing convention, not from the American Society of Dowsers. It's a different group. And when I went up there, I was walking down the hall, and I wanted to attend 2 classes, one by the remote viewer Ingo Swan. We missed his class, but I got to meet him, which was really super cool. And then, hold on, I'm going to cough. It was another class by another guy who he had been, I don't want to say killed. He had 2 near-death experiences being hit by lightning. So both had become dowsers also. So I wanted to hear what they had to say. But I missed both classes. And when I was leaving, because the darn class was over with, I'm walking out, and a guy stopped me and said, "Oh, your dad says you treasure hunt." And my dad had just started getting into treasure hunting. And I was already treasure hunting with my dowsing and my psychic ability. And I said, "Well, what do you have?" And he said, "Well, I need to find some treasure, and I want to know if I'll become a treasure hunter." I said, "Okay." And what happened was he had a bunch of maps, and I said, "Okay, look, I'll talk to you later," because I thought, your mind is thinking, "Oh yeah, right," because I would say a good 80% of the treasure hunters are not really treasure hunters. There are dedicated treasure hunters out there that's why they find stuff, because they buy the piece of equipment, or you can rent the equipment, or you can go with a friend, or go with a team, or take a class, or tour on treasure hunting. Just do it. And what happened was I was walking about 20 feet from him, and I got hit with an epiphany that he's got treasure. So I turned around, and I ran back to him in my 5-inch heels. And what an idiot. I mean, here I am, at the Marriott, and I'm running down the hall with these heels. And I said, wait a minute. I think you have treasure on one of your maps. And he goes, "Really?" So we scheduled an appointment, and we went over his maps, and I touched one of his maps. And this sounds goofy, but you can do what's called deviceless body dowsing. You can do the same thing for treasure, missing persons, or ghosts. And my fingers started sticking to the map. And I said, this is the one you want to work on. So he goes, "Yeah, but that one has like 10 other maps with it." I said, "Thank you."
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating. I mean, I'm sure it's like going to a haunted mansion. "Oh, great. We don't have 1 floor. We have 10 floors. Great." So I pulled out the map, and I said, "Okay, let me figure out which one we want to do." And so I had to go map to map to map. And I finally went to one. I said, "This one." And so I said, "Move everything else aside. This is the one you want." And so then, of course, that took like a couple hours, and I did get paid for it. And I said, "Okay, so after lunch, because you have to re-energize yourself, I said, let's go over this map, and we'll try to figure out an area." So I pinpointed an area, and what I do is I pinpoint the street closest to the treasure, the landmarks closest to the treasure, the radius, or the area that I call as a radius, and I say, "This is where you want to search." So they flagged it off, and that's another thing. People don't realize you have to take your flag with you, and then you have to take with you shovels, and you have to have a bunch of equipment. I mean, you can do it cheaply. You can go yard sailing and buy a bunch of stuff. Go get your shovels from a yard sale, $1 a piece. Mm-hmm. Go get your sifter. Make a sifter. I mean, there was a guy that sent, this new bucket idea. You take a double bucket, you put holes in it, and it's your filter for finding gold or whatever you're doing. So what he did was he took his bucket on a river, and he put, so you take the bucket, dip it in the water, and get a bunch of dirt or sand or gravel, whatever. You pull it up, and what you do is you leave the bottom bucket down, and you pull up the first bucket, and it drops all the water through it, and then whatever you're looking for may be in that first bucket, which is really cool. I hope I explained that properly, but it's a double bucket system. It was super cool. Anyway, so what happened on this particular situation was I took him to a road. It was probably north and south. Again, we're working with north and south. And I said, now you want to show them the east and west point. And I said, go right here. So they did about a 40-foot radius, and they had a reaction. They had 2 metal detectors. I believe the one that is like a vacuum cleaner or a lawnmower. It's goofy looking. They had the bigger one, and it reacted heavily onto something. So they dug around 2 feet, and they pulled up a hood of a car. And it was now this is what you have to pay attention to when you're treasure hunting or ghost hunting, whatever. The car hood was in the era that we were looking for. It was in the 1920s. Here's the story. Al Capone and his buddies robbed a government truck with payroll. Now, that included coinage, dollars, and silver bars. And so I knew on my grocery list that I had to have dollars and coinage. I didn't know what kind of coinage, so I put silver and gold, and then I put silver bars. And so when they dug down and they found the top of the car, they said, we got a top of a car hood. Who cares? I said, no, let's take that out because, I mean, we're talking, I think it was in the 90s. And I said, this doesn't make sense. Why would you put the hood of a car? Again, I tell people, you ask, where should I be led to? All right? Of course, if you're led to the edge of a building, you don't freaking jump off. But so they took the hood of the car out. I said, take that out of the dirt and then put down the equipment again. And they did, and it was still reacting just as strongly. And they said, we still have something. I said, okay, dig some more. They dug like 2 to 4 more feet, and they found over 60 bars of silver buried by Ray Nitty, Nitty, and it was Al Capone's best man, I guess you could call him, his BFF. And Ray had robbed the government truck with him, and that was his portion. And he took it and hid it at a bed and breakfast in southern Chicago. And I have a picture of that, which I sent you guys, I believe. And that was my first big hit on treasure. I had a second big hit, and I attended now that was a different conference. I think it was called the Chicago International Dowsers Convention. So it had nothing to do with the American Society of Dowsers. The other one was a guy approached me when I was at one of the conventions for the American Society of Dowsers, and he goes, well, if you're that good, why don't you pinpoint where a missing ship is? And I said, okay. And what was really funny was I said, it's really weird because my fingers got little electrical, I don't know the term. I would almost say like an electrical hit on my finger. So when I touched the map, the man had a map, and I touched it, and I said, right here, there's something right here. And when I dowsed it, I drew a line, and I said, the wreck of the ship from, let's say, 1700s, it was Spanish, I said, is all along this path. And I guess it was like 4 years later or something, and I ran into the guy again, and he goes, I hate to tell you, but we found it. It was worth in the billions. I said, oh, that's nice. You didn't pay me to find it. You didn't pay me my commission. Why don't you pay me now? Well, I'm sure all the money you spent. So I find you this ship, and you don't pay me. Yeah. Well, why don't you work on the next job? Yeah. If you pay me up front, I'll work on the next job. But you can't just sit there and not pay me to find ship and become wealthy from it and then not pay me. And so, so I tell people, when you treasure hunt, you got to be with some really good people because most of the people get your money up front, get your investors up front, and be very careful with everything you do with it. Because when I worked on a oil case overseas in Syria, and they said, we're going to pay you up front, which they did. Money was really good. And they go, when you find the oil wells, we're going to give you $75,000 per oil well. Well, I found the wells, and they didn't pay me the $75,000. So it's a double-edged sword when you work on treasure hunting. It's rough. So I tell everybody, watch who you're with. You literally have to take armed people with you when you work on certain jobs on treasure hunting. And yes, I have worked on treasure hunting. And yes, I have found some things. And yes, I'm working on some other projects, but I don't share those projects with other people. They're across the U.S. right now, which is fun. It's fun. I mean, touching history in your hand is unbelievable. This past year, I went out this winter, as stupid as I was. It was cold and rainy, and my client took me with him, and we redid the L-Rod to go find anything else on the property. And he found a 1700s cannonball, and he found some other stuff from the 1700s. And when I was on site, I couldn't find anything else, nothing. But we were touching a 1700s cannonball. It was pretty cool. And so there he has it.
Yeah, that's got to have so much history and feeling and emotion behind it. You would think.
You would think. I mean, I just talked to a treasure hunter yesterday, and I talk to him regularly. I mean, I tell people that this is like, it's like a dream come true. It is so fun. Ghost hunting can be fun. But again, I don't do the creepy sites. You guys can go do the creepy sites. I like the history with the ghost hunting, like if it's a castle with history or a hotel with history or something like that. That's more up my alley. The people with the problems, it's complicated, as you well know. Look what you dealt with. You took something home. That's no fun.
Yeah, but that's pretty epic. You found that treasure, and it's pretty crappy that they didn't even, give you at least 10% of it. But
No. I have new treasure hunters, and they're really nice guys. I have guys in the Southwest. I have guys in the south of this area. The biggest problem with treasure hunting out of the country is you don't know the language, and I do all the work from here, which is really super cool. So if he's going to get started, get a book, go to one of those the rental companies where you can rent a piece of equipment. Try it out. One guy on the internet just recently complained the reason he buys and sells treasure equipment is because he found customer service was lacking. And it's like buying a good washer or dryer for a female. You want that really good piece of equipment to find what you're looking for. Because I'll tell you a really great story. One of my guys, he found a coin. He thought it was worth $30,000. He took it to an auctioneer, and he goes, nope, we're going to put it up for $90,000. Can you imagine? You just found $90,000, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah, for real.
You can't beat that. You could be you could be ghost hunting and do treasure hunting at the same time and find a coin from an era where the coin is worth $90,000. You can't beat that. Of course, if it's somebody's home, you're going to have to work out a deal with them, because I really believe in honesty is the best policy.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether you find it or not, unless it's an abandoned building, then But if it's owned, then you have to work out a deal. Say, look, if I find anything, I'll do 50-50 with you. Are you willing to do that? But go in asking that first. Get a contract. Get it on paper. Don't do verbals. Verbals don't work. I have found that out myself. So does that answer his question? I hope it answers his question.
Well, yeah, that was, it covered several different treasure hunts, and you were saying earlier that your dad used to douse for the military, and that was for, like, claymores and such. But he also doused for treasure as well?
He did. He found miscellaneous things and coinage. He found jewelry. My dad was a really nice guy, and he used to go out with a couple of people that were not savory. They were not honorable people. They would take the stuff, the items found, and said, "Oh, go take it to a jeweler and I'll sell it and then I'll give you your share. And they never paid my dad. They just stole from him. So he had to, I hate to use this term, cut them off. And he had to learn the hard way on a regular basis. But, I mean, there are some great treasure hunters out there. There really are. You just have to be selective.
Nice. Well, generally, when I have a psychic on, we'll do free readings in the third hour. But Christopher in the chat room was asking if I could ask you if he's having energy issues because he feels something isn't right.
Okay, well, he has to be more specific. So when he says energy issues, is he talking about for himself physically?
Most likely spiritually.
I'm trying to figure out what he's talking about. Okay, so do we have a first name and a last name? And here's how you can be more accurate. Okay. You go with the first name, the last name, and what state and town is he in. And that helps me focus a lot more. I mean, I just got some input already. So he said spiritually, I mean, that's a plethora of, it could go anywhere. Physically, he's going to have to worry about kidney stones way down the road. I don't know how old he is. I get the number 5, so in 2025, he'll probably come down with kidney stones. Okay, so guess what? You know, how one way to avoid kidney stones supposedly is asparagus, because it goes around, you know, it goes around your organs and helps your organs. Regarding spiritual, I see him hitting a wall. I don't see anything changing until February 8th of 2019. He is being shown climbing a wall. Well, he's actually going up an escalator, so he's going into a higher level of thinking in the spring of next year. And I would lean toward March, and I want to say March 9. But it is a slow process. But what's really weird is when I see an escalator, that's great news. The only thing about him next year is I feel like he's got a death in the family coming, but not a close family member. So it doesn't feel like grandpa, grandma, or anything like that. It feels like a distant relative. So it could be an uncle you don't talk to or an aunt you don't talk to. It's just makes him do a lot more thinking about family. I hope that answers his question. But spiritually, you know, there's so many groups spiritually. I would almost tell you, if I had to reach out, it depends. I mean, does he want to reach out spiritually because of money? Does he want to reach out because he wants to be happier? I mean, his question is very vague.
Yeah, I think he's received a few spiritual attacks as of late, but also he's been kind of on a family quest, getting in touch with his roots and a long-lost relative that is actually royalty. So that is part of what he's been doing.
Oh,
but
that's
he
cool.
says protection from being attacked, and he just feels like things are off.
Okay, well, you know, a lot of times you have those Pathway magazines, and they will have people who recommend, you know, make sure they're not far out and weird, but there are some really great classes on how to protect yourself. We can't do that on radio because we just don't have a lot of time. And secondly, it's difficult to cover everything at one time, one subject matter. But spiritually, I think I would head to a group that, again, I love the group thing because you can get educated very quickly and you have a lot of input from a lot of different people, but don't be misled. There are some weirdos out there, and they are going to contribute to, oh, try this or try that. That's not true. Talk to people who are experts, and you'll be a happier camper. Spiritually, regarding the relative he may be hunting for, may not be alive anymore. And so he may have to sort of, what I call dogleg it, go around and go a different path, and he'll find what he's looking for. The fact that he's got an escalator being shown, it means to me he's going to be successful in what he's looking for. It feels really good. There is something to do with, I want to go with either the grandfather side of the family, and I don't know why I want to say that, but that's where I'm headed. Can he tell us what, when he says royalty, what country? Does he say which country?
Oh man, I know he has in the past, but I cannot remember. Christopher, if you can bring that up, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm trying to place it, but I'm just drawing a blank at the moment.
I mean, I'm just almost wanting to say Hispanic, but that's just my opinion. And it could be he doesn't even know that
Monaco.
exists with his family yet. With Canadian?
In Monaco.
The first thing I get when you say Monaco and him, I get a stomach ache, which means to me he's not going in the right direction. So what I do is I put together my personal physical reaction, which is called deviceless body dowsing, and I don't feel that that's the case. My bet would be that his family could be related more back toward Europe. So if he's saying Monaco, I don't think so. I think he needs to keep looking and doing research more and more and more, and then he'll get where he wants to go. It may be a 3-year process for him. I want to say this, that he's doing it at a slow pace. And that's okay. You know, you don't have a lot of time. You could be working a full-time job. You don't have a full-time amount of time to keep going, looking, and seeing if that's the case. They have that DNA 1, 2, 3. That could be the fastest way to do it.
And he says
when
Monaco,
he can afford it.
Monaco is in France, in Europe.
Okay, but for some reason, he's right. That's right. I'm being brain dead. Yeah. And
it is late for you, so we forgive you.
Yeah, thank you. No, he's absolutely right. Okay, so he's saying Monaco in France. I got to tell you, I'm getting a foreign language like Hispanic. I will tell you, those Spanish royals, oh my God, they're amazing. Honestly, some of the Romans trained the Spaniards. I'm just curious if this guy has a higher IQ and Christopher and doesn't recognize that. And
he says it's 2 hours from Spain.
Okay. All I can tell you is I would keep hunting, but I would try the 1, 2, 3. That might be the fastest reaction. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you a story. This true story. My friend's husband did the DNA 1, 2, 3, and they found out he is the only link or the only known person to be a royal directly related to the Russian royal family. And I can tell you the story on it. His grandmother was an out of the marriage, was a baby put up not for adoption, but put into an orphanage in Jordan from Russia. Do you believe it? And so his grandmother had a daughter, and she had him, and they did the DNA, and they were just shocked. And the guy the DNA went all the way back to the Tsar's sister.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. And they said they have never found anybody to be the link directly to them. And I thought, you know what? That makes sense. Remember I said you have to follow the link. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, I'm seeing red, and red I think is Spain. I know he might be interested in French. I have a little bit of family royalty in France, but I don't know that lineage yet. My sister knows it. I haven't read the file. I'm working on my Canadian lineage right now, which is fun.
Yeah. I have some up there too.
I'm going to say there you go. I think the fastest way is that 1, 2, 3 thing. Keep going. Keep riding that bicycle. You'll get there. Success is next year for him. He's gonna be happy about next year. He's gonna meet some milestones next year and be real happy. So, I always like giving good news. Go for it. Can't beat it.
Indeed. Good news is the best.
Yep.
So we don't have any more questions or calls in as of yet. But I was also interested in some of your other cases. You were a part of the Caylee Anthony case. And what were the other ones? You had...
okay. So Chandra Levy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have no idea that I actually worked on the case with an FBI agent, and it was a top FBI agent. It wasn't just some yo-yo head. And he came to my house, and he was brought to the house via the Chandra went missing when another robbery case was going on. And what had happened was there was a community vigil. The chief of police from D.C. was at the vigil. One of the community leaders was a friend of mine, and he said, hey, let's go talk to Ginette about Chandra being missing. And at first, I think we all felt like she was alive. I don't know why I want to say that, but I think we were all in denial and all hoping for the best because she looked like such a special, kind person. And, I mean, she was a pretty cute kid. I mean, you're like, that doesn't happen. We all want to think it doesn't happen. Anyway, so the FBI came out with my contact, and I touched the map with my fingertips, as I tell everybody I do. I did a little piece of paper where I plan out how to find missing persons, who, what, when, where, how. I have quite a few other processes, but I said, you're not going to believe this, because I'm from D.C., and I said, she's over in Rock Creek Parkway. And they said, what? And D.C., you know how New York has that big park, Central Park? Well, D.C. has its own Central Park, and it's Rock Creek Parkway. And I said, well, here's the deal. She was placed in a creek bed in Rock Creek Park, but you'll find her. You just go to the police department there, and there's 2 police departments apparently, one for police, and at a distance there's another one for the police horses. And I said, like the barn and the horses, because I kept seeing the horses. And I said, walk down the hill from the horses into the creek bed, and she's right there, and she's got this on her and that on her and so forth. And he goes, you sure? And I said, yeah, she's right there. You can't miss her. So in the news, people were seeing them hunt a certain location, and she wasn't at that location. They thought she was at some mansion touring it, and that's why things took a turn for the worst. And then they asked me, is she alive or dead? So I said, I believe she's deceased. And I said, well, I could be wrong. I said, let's just hope for the best. But I say, I see a creek bed, and I see water, and I see I'm in the water. And every time I talk about this, I just think murder is tragic. Homicide is tragic, no matter which case it is. All right, so I said, wherever she was abducted by a guy that is a rapist. And I said, he has got tattoos on him. He is in a prison now, and I don't know if it's Georgia. Then he's going to go to California. And then he's going to go somewhere else. But what's really weird is I see him cooking in the kitchen. And you'll find him cooking in a kitchen with DNA. And they said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, and it took quite a while. But what had happened was, the reason they didn't catch him was he kept being transferred from one place, then to Georgia, then to California. And when he got to California, I was doing the Caylee Anthony case, and they ran him again, and they finally... In other words, when you're in prison, apparently you can be moved around, and if you're not stable, then they can't follow your DNA. It's not in the files or something, or it's not in the computers, or it's not updated. And because he was finally there for a certain time frame, that's how they found him. And I said, he's Hispanic, and I don't want to put, dampers on the Hispanic people, because I think they're awesome. Mm-hmm. It was just a guy who, for whatever reason, he felt entitled to rape women. Well, anyway, he was caught on raping other women, and he got out on bond or something. And, this is a true story. He got caught raping 2 other women, and he was out on bond. I mean, how stupid can you be? And then what happened was, apparently, which I'm not sure what's going on behind the scenes, but when they caught him, the DNA was deteriorated a little bit, even though, let's say 80% matches. Well, darn well it has to be 100% has to match. So they do believe he's the guy, and they deported him. and I would assume he's in prison there in his foreign country, Colombia or wherever. But unfortunately, we had to let him go. So the poor Levys have to deal with this garbage. They've lost their daughter, and they've lost the feeling of justice, which I see happen a lot. They just, you just pray to God to please give justice. It doesn't always happen. That's why some of these cases are hard to talk about. And I don't need to meet the families of the victims of cases. I mean, if I'm working with police, like tomorrow I have to do a case in New York, and I'm working with a police officer, and the family wants to meet me on the phone tomorrow. And it's a cold case from 35 years ago. And we have a spot, and then now I have to narrow down how many feet and so forth. The only problem is 35 feet could be when I dowsed it originally, but because of the weather, the animals, it could be 150 feet. So there's a lot of changes. But on the New York case, they're going to take K9 out, which is great. So that's the Levy case. That's a cold case I'm working on right now. And I have other cases that I just don't disclose until I'm done. The book I'm working on, one of the books I'm working on is a how-to, and the other one is on my actual casework. So no homicides are nice. No missing person cases are nice. But I have found missing persons alive, which is great.
Yeah, that's
my
awesome.
cat is trying. Yeah, my cat is trying to bite me while we're talking.
Oh no!
Great.
Mine always gets on me and claws my leg, and I'm like, "Geez, come on, leave the room. I'm trying to do something here." We had a question from the chat room, and Trip is wondering, did Ginette find the remains of 30 people in different areas, or a farm with 30 people's remains in Texas?
It's over 20, not 30. Wouldn't that be nice? But I am working on some really big cases with serial killers, and I'm sure it's going to exceed eventually in the next couple of years. It's going to be pretty high. I haven't worked on any cases in Texas. I did volunteer to work on a case in Texas. I'll tell you honestly, I think the family's too traumatized. They haven't moved forward, and they haven't found the remains. The girl's been missing for a long time. And I bet it's at least 20 years old, so it's an old, cold case, and I think they just are having a hard time dealing with it. So I let it go, and I call it sitting on the shelf, the bookshelf, and if they want to move forward, they'll call me. If they don't want to move forward, so be it. I'm not going to make somebody use my services. That was one thing interesting about the Caylee Anthony case. When I was with the PI on the phone pinpointing where the body was, I was on the phone, so I had to prove the phone records, and people laughed at me. Oh, well, she can't prove it. She doesn't have the records, the phone records. Okay, first of all, Virginia State is paperless, jerks. And what is so funny is it takes 2 weeks to get the papers. So in other words, you don't get them initially unless you request it. So you have to write a letter, and you have to call, and you have to say the time frame and period of phone calls. And they like, if you wanted August 1st to August 15th, and they go, well, expect it within 1 week to 2 months. And that's how Virginia works with paperless phone services, with Verizon. And so people were like, oh, she's making it up, da-da-da. No, I was on the phone with a guy. Yes, I was sitting in my chair at my home. Who cares? Yes, I can do it all from here. It's not a big deal. I mean, I have my treasure hunters coming, and they go, you want to go in the field with us? Not really. I hate rattlesnakes. So Texas, I do know they have some problems in Texas. I have not been asked to work on the projects. But there was one more tidbit I was going to say. On the Caylee Anthony case, I think they had over 2,300 callers that were psychics. And I even worked on a case in New York, and they had over 2,000 callers that were psychics. And it was my very first case that I did. They hired me to go to New York, a family, and flew me up there, and they asked me to work on the case, and I told them where the remains were and blah, blah. And I said, don't even go searching, because what happens is he's in the water, and he's going to be thrown out of whatever container he's in, and he's going to land right here. And I described it and everything. And they go, we don't know what you're talking about. And I said, it's a military school, and you can't do it because it's military private property. And I said, these two military men are going to find it, and when they do, I call it the final. And when I work on missing person cases, I have the beginning, the middle, the climax, and the end. And the climax can tell you what's going on. It's almost like a bunch of particles blow up and start giving you all the details. And if you can't get the climax, you have to go to the final. And so what I do is, on the climax, what happens is I'll tell people, oh my gosh, the body's in the water and he's going to go land on land, but you can't go find this guy because it's on private property. So I said, these two military officers are going to find the body, and you'll get a phone call on Sunday the 24th. And he was found by two military officers on the private property of a military school. It was literally the Navy Department, and they found the guy's body. And that was my first, I call it a hit. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. And I was right about him being found on a Sunday. I mean, the synagogue called me back and said, you were right on the money. You were the only one that was correct. Sometimes you get police cooperation, sometimes you don't. I have one right now on my plate where I have a case out of Chicago. I'm trying to get cooperation. Nothing right now. I have a case out of Oregon. You got to have canine. No canine, no body. You have to remember, some of these cases are so old that only the dogs can sniff it out. Unfortunately, there's cases where there's body parts, and you won't even recognize it because it's so old. I have cases in Florida that the cops, I've called the Detective Allen from the Caylee Anthony case. I want to tell him where a family is missing and where the parts are. And nothing, no return phone calls, nothing. I got hired by a guy in Connecticut to find a family of 4. And no cooperation, no phone calls back, no nothing. So I tell people, you have a 50-50 shot when it comes to missing persons. You know, you either are going to get cooperation or you could be on private property. I have another case near Virginia Beach I worked on. And when I was down there, it was really funny because a friend of mine was DEA, and he told them how good I was. And I said, the bodies are right here. And the cops were like, how do you know to come right here? I said, because I'm dowsing. And they literally cursed me out and said, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. They were on and on. They were cursing at me, and I was younger. I was 27. And I looked at them like, why are they bullying me? And I think if I was a guy or if I was with my father, they wouldn't have done it. But I didn't look my age, and they just felt entitled that they could just be rude and insulting. And I said, you've got a serial killer, and the bodies are right down in here. They were in the water, and I said, you're on naval property. You're going to have to take the dog down and go get them. They would not. They refused, and the family members gave up because I said, they're right there. What's funny is that they took a dog out, and wherever I was walking, I was doing tracking. The dog walked the same area, and it pissed off the FBI agents. And they said, you've been here. You've been here before, and you're watching us. I said, I live 2.5 hours from you. Why would I do that? Okay, I'm not going to waste my gas to come down here. First of all, I have a limited income. I'm an executive secretary, and I'm going to waste my time coming down here every 2 weeks to watch your canine go do its thing. First of all, you guys blocked off the road. And secondly, I don't have time to do garbage like that. And that's the tragedy. It's a double-edged sword. Missing persons is a challenge. That's why buried treasure hunting is a lot more fun. You know, it's not that you're going to get cooperation. Safety is your biggest factor on buried treasure hunting. Ghost hunting is a blast. I mean, you guys just don't have a clue what you're going to get. Sometimes it's going to be awesome, and other times it's going to be the pits.
Yeah.
You know?
One of our biggest cases is a case where a boy had gone missing, and we didn't know, well, we did, but we didn't legitimately know that he was gone for quite some time. But there has been a few remains found. His skull was just found a year or so ago, but very few remains. And I generally don't ask questions on here, but I was curious, will we have any success bringing back more of the remains to put him at rest?
Well, this is what you do: is you write down who. So what's his full name?
His name
or can
is,
you talk about it?
Dylan Redwine.
Dylan what? Redwine?
Redwine, yes.
What does that name ring a bell? Was it in the news?
Most likely, yes. He was on on for a second with Nancy Grace, but he was all over the news down here, and also on Dr. Phil.
Yeah, I don't watch Dr. Phil very often. My sister does.
Good for you.
Okay, so I mean, it's a lot of people with a lot of trauma and a lot of counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's his first name again?
Dylan.
Dylan. All right, so the first thing I'm getting is that Dylan was thrown out with trash. Was he in I assumed he was buried a little bit and in the woods. Is that correct?
More like scattered. I don't think his father really tried to bury him, and he had actually moved him, I believe, a time or two.
Okay, so all right, so how old is the case?
It happened in 2012. It was Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, so it's 6 years. All right. So my opinion is that he was buried in the woods and the animals tore him apart. Okay. The problem with cold case stuff is that so you want to know if you're going to find more parts. Honestly, you're gonna need canine. And if you found the skull, that's the good news, because that means he's deceased and it can close the case. But you're going to have to track it. But my feeling is you're going to track it to some bushes, and you're going to track it to where some really scary animals are. You're in Colorado. You guys have some scary stuff out there.
Yeah.
I mean, the lions, the tigers, the bears, yeehaw. I mean, it's creepy out there. I mean, you guys got some, we've watched on TV where a black bear's, crawled across the street, or jogged across the street. We don't have to deal with that very often in Virginia. I mean, maybe down south in a non-populated area, but my bet is you can find the parts, but that's a tracking method.
Mm-hmm.
It will take some time. Let me see.
We've actually, there's been several searches with a lot of people and also with canines and such, and I was pregnant at the time, so I went up and down the mountain with my dowsing rods, and I did it at least 3 times just to make sure they were pinging on the same spots, and so they always did. So my next step would be to go up there during open hours, because they're not open all year long for this mountain, and do a search, with friends. But yeah, both times I believe that parts were found. His brother was with the party, and he wasn't there during this. He was in Colorado Springs, but yeah, it was the father just trying to hurt the mother, really. And it's actually finally going to trial. He's finally in jail after so many years, and that happens on my birthday, so maybe that's a good omen.
The only thing I can tell you is it's going to take some time. The problem with bones or remains is they don't look real. I mean, I found a bone one time, and I turned it in anyway, and they laughed at me. The cops laughed at me because they said, "That's a chicken bone, stupid." I said, "Okay, that's fine. I don't care. Call me stupid all you want." The problem is I'm not a forensic specialist. I'm a forensic dowser, a forensic psychic, okay. But if it's a bone, I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to look stupid. I don't care. I'm going to turn it in. my theory is it's going to take a while.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can see. So you guys get snow too, so that's going to cause a weather effect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I just got the number 7, so that means either October 7, or it just means end time. I personally think it's a waste of time to look. My feeling is if you're going to go out, you've got to go out with canine. Dowsing is great, but you can narrow down the area and the radius, and then you hunt with canine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so in other words, you can flag it and say, okay, when we come back, this is where we want to go. This is where we want to be.
Yeah, and I was actually wrong on this last one. I just remembered it was a hunter on a 4-wheeler that saw the skull, and it's like this story you hear so many times. I saw a glint off of something, so I stopped to see what it was, and it's actually, the sun shining off of a bone. And they did say that they found tool marks on the bones, so his dad had actually separated him himself. And that makes it even harder,
Oh, you mean cut the body up? Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's so much anger. That's tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's sad is you don't know all the other parts of the detail of the situation. I just think you got a 50-50 shot. I think it's limited. My feeling is if you want to use the L rods, get yourself out there. But you guys start getting snow as early as September or late August. I mean, you could get snow like August 1st, and that's in a week or so.
Yeah, and we actually generally we would get our, heavy snows and stuff around Halloween, but the weather's been so wonky for the last few or several years that we can't really pin it down anymore, but they do have their certain times that this gate is open, so hopefully we can get up there, but we've been pretty backlogged with a bunch of cases for people around here, so but it's still on our list of things to do, and it's the reason that we came to be Four Corners Paranormal Investigations is due to this case. Like, it brought me out of the paranormal closet, so to speak, and I'm really grateful for that, and then I'm able to help people now. But yeah, thank you so much for that. And you said you are working on some books. Do you have any books that you have written?
I don't, but my dad has books that he's written. Buried treasure hunting. One is I think a how-to. The treasure hunting book is pretty much on how-to. A lot of my dad's books can go from $50 to $300. Some idiot is selling his book for $2,200.
Oh, wow.
You can sometimes see that. Yeah, he's
That's
very popular.
That's a lot for a book. Man.
Yeah, and the tragedy is we do have copyright infringement going on right now, and basically people are copying the book and printing it, and we don't know if pages are missing and so forth, and people are even signing his name saying he signed the books, and he didn't sign the books. Because right now I'm selling the last 20 left on things, and my dad's handwriting right now is so noticeable that it's totally different than what they're selling. There's even people in Australia and Europe selling his book, and about $300 to $600 a piece. And so I tell people, look, if you want to buy the real book, just give me a call and you can buy the real book. But you can look it up. You can Google my name, Ginette Lucas, and my father's Louis Natasha, and what happens. Well, you can look up Dowsing and the man that did the military work or the government work with Dowsing, and yes, he has several books he's written, but not many are left. My plan was to rewrite the book because it needs some really good editing work. When you're treasure hunting, it's very complicated. You need to make sure it's step by step.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are at the moment. But if they're interested in my dad's books, they're for sale. There's not that many left. I sell pendulums for Dowsing, and I sell L-rods. I don't have a lot of L-rods left. I have a stash from my dad's stuff and a stash from my stuff, and I do make pendulums, and they range everywhere from $25 and up.
So you have some of your dad's original L-rods?
I do.
That's awesome.
And We only have like 10 left, if that. I mean, I just sold a set and sent them out. They are very unique, though. They're super sensitive, and they might be copper. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I sell those for $50, and plus shipping, which is 10. The other books, his smaller books are $50 plus shipping, and the big one is between $150 and $300, because they can hold their own price. I don't know why they're so popular, but they are.
Yeah.
But once they get edited, they'll be a lot better, I think. Even a movie producer called me about doing the life and times of my father, and I've had 2 guys call me, and a third called, but who knows. So we'll see what happens out of that, because he definitely was a fascinating person.
So we have about...
He was quite a...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say he's quite a contributor. I mean, not just the paranormal, but dowsing, and with military, and with personal usage. So it's very helpful.
Nice. Yeah, and I really do love those things. They're my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help it. But we have 2 minutes left in the show. What would you say your greatest or biggest accomplishment has been thus far in your career?
I don't think it was a Caylee Anthony case or Chandra Levy. I think what was more of my accomplishment is proving to the Smithsonian Magazine that not that I could find missing objects, just that dowsing worked. Okay. And I think once that hit, I thought, oh my gosh, it's consistent. A lot of people don't know how consistent it is. And you find it consistent, so that's great, because you're using it on a regular basis. And I tell people, why aren't you dowsing? I mean, it's a big plus. I mean, I really think that people become more psychic once they douse. And I see a better breed of people that douse, too, which I think is great.
Yeah, I really do enjoy it, and I was actually let down one time. I bought this book on dowsing, and it had talked about different things, different ways to do it, different things that can make it ping, such as different stones and metals or whatnot, but it was all basically breaking it down, like it didn't really work, and it wasn't that proficient. But I find, the more people that use it and the more experiences that we can record, the better. Just with any other investigatory stuff that we're doing out here. So we are at the end of our show. Are there websites or links where our listeners can get a hold of you or use your wonderful gifts?
Well, a lot of people, if they want to contact me, they can use Facebook. Facebook, it's Ginette Lucas, and it says Paranormal Advisors. So it's real simple. Ginette Lucas, Lucas, Paranormal Advisors. And then they can also Google it, or they Google the Caylee Anthony case, and my name is on there. Did Psychic Ginette Natasha Lucas or Ginette Lucas find Caylee? Heck yeah, I did. So what? Let's move on. We have other people to be found. The other way to reach me is on email, and it says reachginette@gmail.com. It's real simple. Reachginette, GINETTE @gmail.com. I mean, that's it. Real simple. And sometimes I respond within an hour. Sometimes it's within 24 hours max, typically, unless it's in my spam. And that's my only complaint. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'll go fight with my cat.
Oh yeah, thank you so much, Ginette, for being on, and I'm sorry your cat did harass you, but it was so wonderful having you on the show this evening.
Okay, and if I can help you, let me know, Tessa, no problem.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ginette.
All
you
right,
have a
take
wonderful evening.
All right.
And thank you so much to everyone in Spaced Out Radio, Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Paranormal Radio, TalkStream Live, Deep Talk Radio, and wherever else in the universe you may be listening tonight. I had a wonderful time this evening. It was my pleasure, literally and figuratively. I can't wait to do it again this coming weekend, and I will also be popping in this Friday, filling in for Dave, as he does have a family funeral to go to. So please continue to send out your love and light and prayers for Dave and hopefully we can make it a little better for him. And until next time, nighty-night, love and light to all my space cases out there. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we own the night. You guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you back here this Friday. You guys have a good night, and for those of you across the pond, you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye, guys.